This is one of the only films that feels like an animation come to life almost. Like you're seeing stuff that normally looks fake, but it feels real.
Today I'm sitting down with Danny to talk about The Matrix, arguably the greatest action movie of all time. We'll explore all the threads of 90s culture that were woven together into this masterpiece, from the music and fashion to the brands, visual effects, and philosophy. We'll count down our favorite shots, quotes, and actors, explain exactly how the revolutionary bullet time effect was achieved, and I'll tell Danny the stranger than fiction story of how the actor who played Tank completely went off the rails and why he never returned for the sequels. But for now, sit back, relax, and welcome to my film club. Today we're going to do the most, I think, important action movie for millennials in terms of something that came out when we were growing up, and arguably one of the best action movies of all time, The Matrix. So for such a important movie, there was only one person I could have on, Danny, our resident movie nerd, movie lover. So welcome back, Danny. You're our first three-time guest.
Yeah, honor, legend material.
Yeah, definitely on track for it. The last two movies we did were Casino and The Lighthouse. Mm-hmm. The Casino I picked, The Lighthouse you pick. This one, I think, I can't even remember technically which one of us picked this one, but I think it's a mutual love.
Yeah.
So start us off with your relationship with this movie. When did you first see it? How often do you watch it? What does it mean to you?
Okay, so I remember I was 11, I think, when it came out. So I just remember all the trailers around it. And I remember it was one of the first times I'd noticed awareness in terms of like product placement in the trailer, because I'm pretty sure Nokia was doing adverts for The Matrix at the time. I remember everyone like being really buzzing about it, but because I was 11, I couldn't go see it. So as soon as it came out on VHS, which would have been when I was probably 12, I imagine, we rented it straight away. And then I remember I brought it. And then I brought the score, and then I brought the soundtrack, and then I watched it religiously over and over and over again.
Do you remember the very first time you watched it? Or is it just one of those where, because you were so young, it just you just remember a period of your life where you watched it all the time?
Just that period. Like, so I think 1999 in particular, there was lots coming out. So I remember it might have even been around the same time I watched The Sixth Sense as well.
Yeah, that's the same year.
I'm trying to think what else came out in 1999 that I would have watched at that point.
American Beauty. Because that's what won Best Picture that year.
I'd watched Fight Club, but when I remember with Fight Club I'd read the book, but before the age of 13, and
that's crazy.
Then I'd seen it. And then I remember the hype for the sequels, and then I saw the second one, and then I didn't go see the third one.
Wow, you didn't go see it at all.
And then I saw the third one later on, and then when we went to college, it was one of the key films. And we watched
As in you were already studying it?
Yeah, we were studying it. So we watched, in particular, it was studying it for editing. So we watched the hallway sequence. So basically, the way it would set up is they'd pick that scene, and then they would just loop that scene for 1 to 2 hours, and you'd make notes of every single detail that you can pick up on.
So about 5 minutes?
And it'd be like, you'd wrote it down, and he'd go, okay, back to beginning, and you just keep doing it over and over again. So for a long time.
And you didn't grow tired of it from doing
I didn't watch it for about 10 years after that. And then I've watched it like periodically throughout. And then I've just noticed, especially on the last rewatch, just how it's got like a perfect economy of story. Like everything's just like, it's full. It doesn't waste any time, and it doesn't feel like it's 2 hours. It's just like everything feels important to it. And there's not that many. It's like, it's good for a film that has nostalgia, but it also still holds up today.
Oh yeah, massively.
But yeah, I remember just for a long time, I just thought like, I remember I wanted a leather jacket.
We'll talk about that extensively, about the fashion implication. So it's interesting that maybe less so the beginning, so the introduction to it, but then definitely a lot of stuff you said later on resonated with me. So I actually have quite a good story for this story. A lot of these movies that I love, I'm like, I don't really remember the first time I watched it because they came out when we were kids, but I don't actually remember the first time I watched this one specifically. But we had these I did not go see it in the cinema. I wasn't even aware of it coming out. I was just your average movie kid around that age. So yeah, I wasn't watching. I mean, this was again pre-YouTube or whatever. So where were you even watching the trailers?
Just on TV.
Right, okay. But so we had some friends who, like, they were the movie people. They had, like, bookcases, like, covered in DVDs. And then they must have watched it there for the first time. And we just watched it over and over again. And the thing, again, I was 9 at the time. So, because I checked, it came out in 99. The DVD came out end of year. So it would have been around then. And just watched it over and over. But, I mean, you were a couple of years older, which helps. But I just know that I loved it, but I didn't understand it. And I just had this core memory of my friend's mum. Shout out to Trisha. I'll always associate you with this movie. Basically, I once said, I was like, I don't understand what's happening. We're not going to give anything away, but just kind of what the Matrix is. And then she explained it to me fairly simply. And from then on, you look back now, you're like, how could anyone not understand this? But I was thinking about this today. This whole concept of an alternate world and living in the Matrix, it's like the idea of time travel.
Yeah.
We all know that now because we've seen movies about it. But you imagine telling someone in 1900s about the concept of time travel and they say, wait, what? It doesn't, because it's such an abstract notion. And that was the same here. So it got to explain to me, enjoyed it more. Yeah. I didn't so much buy all the soundtracks. We would dress up in it. We had all the guns. We would like play gunfights. We wanted to like look like them. And then so following year in 2000, around then, I wasn't the biggest movie nerd, but I still loved movies. So for my birthdays, I'd have all my friends over and we would watch kind of my favorite movie at the time and then have a normal party. And so we were going to rent the movie, but obviously it was the most in-demand DVD. Well, at the time of all time, and it became one of the best selling. And so we went to the DVD store and they were obviously out. And then my dad took us to the store and bought it. And looking back, it's like, of course, that's what you would do. But at the time, I don't even know if we owned any of the DVDs. And so I just remember being like, oh my God, this is such a big deal. And then obviously having the DVD, I watched it over and over again. But like you, I kind of think I overdid it because it's not a movie that I've probably rewatched every couple of years and I've always enjoyed it. But I think a bit like with a pop song, you watch it so much and it's so intense. But now this whole exercise and deep diving, exactly the same as you, I'm like, holy shit, this movie is amazing.
It's a bit like with like a famous like pop song like Wonderwall. You always think you're sick of it because it's so in the culture and you hear buskers doing it all the time. But then when you actually listen to it isolated, you're like, oh no, it's a damn good song.
And in the right context. It comes on at like a party where a birthday party with your friends and you're like, okay, I guess we can sing along to this.
Also, I remember with the Matrix in particular is probably one of the only films that I've consistently rebrought. So I had the VHS, which came in like a chunk. I remember having like a chunkier VHS cover. I think it felt like they texturized the cover as well. Then I got the DVD, which was in like an old snapper case. But by this point, I mean, even from like really early on, I had a book about producing films from like the age of 5. So I was aware of like Steven Spielberg being like a producer and stuff. So I was like, one of the big things for me with DVD was all the extras. So I remember the original release of it not having any, it might have had some, but barely any extras on it. So then they released just a disc purely of just the extras.
Wow.
But then I was just going to get that disc. But then they
got so much money out of it over the years.
They had like the Matrix and then the Matrix bonus disc in a separate box set that was covered in the digital ring. So I was like, oh, okay, well I need to buy that instead. But it's probably one of the only things I can remember where they literally just sold a disc of bonus material that sold really well as well.
But I do remember when I had the first DVD, it did have the bonus material. And it's so good. Like, again, when you're young, I mean, even if you weren't young, you're like, how do they do that? The one I remember mostly is, and we'll talk about it more later, but is the going round shot. And how they just had like, 50 cameras on a green screen and they actually went round. And you're like, yeah, that makes sense, but it just blew your mind. Anyway, we're still in the introduction period here. I'll give some of the drier numbers about it. So, as I said, the movie came out in 1999, and it was created, written, directed by the Wachowski siblings. The story, have you seen their other movies? So, have you seen Assassins and Bound?
I've not seen Assassins, I've seen Bound.
And so, have you heard of Assassins?
Yeah.
So, the story is that basically the Warner Brothers just basically bought a bundle, and they wanted the rights to all 3. Assassins, apparently, I haven't seen either. The Wachowskis wanted to have their name taken off it because it was so bad, but they refused to, which is weird that Warner Brothers was like, no, we think it's going to be good for us to have these unknown creators on it. Bound, is that really good?
Bound's really, really good. So I'd say Bound's probably their like second best film. So I think it's technically the debut because I think they just wrote Assassins. But this
and they directed Bound, and then because Bound was successful, I don't know if it was that big commercially, it was critically successful, and then on the back of that they were like, we want to direct the Matrix. So they got to do it. They got a $60 million budget, but apparently it would have been double, triple that if they'd done it in the US. So they went abroad to do it. But it made almost $500 million and obviously 2 sequels and like billions in merchandise and everything. I couldn't remember at first it had been nominated for any Oscars, but it basically was nominated for a bunch of technical ones. So like sound editing, visual effects, and they did win them all. But looking back, it is crazy to think. I mean, I totally understand the fact that it wasn't even nominated for Best Picture. I get that even though the acting as we'll talk about, I think is great for this movie. I think it was ahead of its time. Like we're saying, the movies that were coming out at the time was American Beauty, Sixth Sense, Green Mile. But I can see how this comes out. You're like, people probably didn't even know what to do with it.
It's weird when you look back up based on that year as well, though, and you look back on stuff that was nominated, because it's like the Cider House Rules and the End of an Affair and stuff. It's like definitely one of those could have been swapped out for The Matrix or something.
Yeah.
Or like even like a Magnolia wasn't nominated. It's just really bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, what I find funny now is when you have the present Oscars and even something that wins. Like I remember The Shape of Water. You probably like that.
I love The Shape of Water.
I did not. And even if you liked it, you'll probably agree it's not one of those movies that people are going to be talking about. I mean, no one's talking about it now. No one's going to talk about it in 20 years. But I find it funny sometimes to be like, whether it's the winners or the nominees, to be like, which one of these movies are actually going to be remembered?
Yeah.
Like Barbie will be remembered 20 years from now. And so do you know what it's on the all-time IMDb?
I'm guessing maybe top 10?
19th. It's just in front of Empire Strikes Back and Cuckoo's Nest, and right behind Interstellar and Goodfellas. I think, that's actually weird. I would have thought it would have been the other way around in terms of what was in front.
I feel like Interstellar's really become a bit of a generational film.
It's one of my less favorite Nolan movies, but I think I've now rewatched it maybe 5-6 times, and I do think it grows on you more. Yeah, it is interesting to see. It's interesting to see what ends up. But to be fair, it's, all of these movies probably have the exact same score, so it's coming down to like teeny tiny.
It's also quite comparable to like Interstellar as well in terms of that Interstellar is comparable to The Matrix as well, because when like on paper, well, just going in blind watching it is like, okay, what is going on here? And then obviously previously in the 80s, like people thought Blade Runner was super complicated, which is weird now.
Blade Runner is I still don't fully understand Blade Runner.
But on paper, it's like, if you summarize, it's a bit like The Matrix. If you can like sort of summarize it, Blade Runner is about a man that hunts replicants, essentially. And then,
that's true.
So there's obviously different layers to it, but it's so funny that with The Matrix, it's good that they didn't. But in the 80s, they're like, we need a narrator all the way through this entire film, whereas The Matrix feels like it really trusts the audience, and I feel like Interstellar does as well.
I like a movie a bit like I'm gonna make a point, but I'm also gonna caveat it. I was gonna say movies like this and Inception that are obviously high concept, but they sort of say they both of them try and hold your hand. In terms of getting, but they still do it but put it this way, they do it, but a lot of people still watch Inception and The Matrix the first time and don't understand it. But it feels like the sorts of movies that you can appreciate even if you don't fully understand what's going on. And you don't feel like a complete idiot. Which is great. Another question I always like to ask is, if you ever found someone who hadn't seen The Matrix, what's the kind of person that you like, or even let's say someone who's just seen it once or twice, what sort of person, what sort of mood would they have to be in for you to say, dude, you should watch Matrix? And I say that with dude because one of the first things is, I think it is fair to, like, women enjoy this movie, but it is a boys, and I say boys even more than men, it is a boys movie.
So it's obviously influenced by a bunch of different films and comic books and anime, all these different like influences, but it almost feels like the prototype for what something like the MCU would come on to later. So it's almost like a superhero origin story, but it's mixing so many different things.
I never even thought about it as that,
because like if you think about it, it's almost like this: if you put Neo, take him out, put Superman, and it can be like the same sort of thing, like the savior.
He is kind of.
But it also is not. It's quite straight faced. The whole time as well.
That's one of my. I actually have that in my notes, and it is here in the entertainment. So my thing about this movie is that it is cool. It oozes coolness, but it's very serious about it, which is such a hard balance, because if you take yourself too seriously, there's so many times rewatching this I realized this, like, from the performances to the shots, this could have been a disaster if you got the wrong actor, or it was slightly badly executed, or the script was worse or something. But you're right, it takes itself very seriously and it pulls it off, which is there's no campiness, there's no wink there's nothing like that, and that's kind of amazing. Like I don't think you could do that if a movie came out now. Like there always has to be a little bit of self-awareness, like, we know this is ridiculous.
It does feel like it's ahead of its time. But also annoyingly a product of its time, because I just feel like we'll get into it, but it feels like they just don't make these films now, and even by the sequel it doesn't look as good as the original does. It, you can tell that they're like, I don't know, there's something about it where it feels like they're obviously advancing technology, but they're very much still about like physicality and like sets. And even by the sequel, which was like 2003, they'd been like, oh, we can do things with computers now, more so even in Reloaded, where he flies off within the first 10 minutes, and it's clearly not him anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, they're taking the actors, aren't they, and they're comping them in to backgrounds, and that feels like a lot more.
I also we'll talk about it in the actors, but I also feel like the shift in Neo's character, because he is very much Mr. Anderson for most of this movie, and then he basically becomes the one in the last 10 minutes, whereas he's then the one for the next two. We'll talk about that later. But then back to the question: who should watch this movie? What mood would you recommend this for?
Maybe even like a solo watch at first.
Okay.
I think, because you don't want to get distracted by anyone.
So I like that, because one of the things I made a note of is this is not you. Someone like us should not watch The Matrix with someone who's never seen it.
Yeah.
Because as hard as we would try, we'd always be like, the scene's coming. This is like the classic guy thing. So I think it's definitely something you're absolutely right. Watch it by yourself or with someone who's never seen it first. And then after that, my thing is it can be either a we want to watch a movie that we're really going to concentrate on, again, by yourself or with someone. Or it can also be something that we're just going to hang out, we're going to have some pizza, we're going to put it on, we're going to chat, and then we'll be like, oh, that scene's going up. It's a great, so which is kind of both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
One last thing before we cross the spoiler line. It's got to be one of the coolest posters.
Oh, yeah,
I was thinking that.
Well.
It's just... And again, it just... Well, I'm going to keep bringing that up, but it was so cool. And honestly, I like the guns and stuff, but it's not as though I didn't want a leather jacket or even the sunglasses, partly because I think I was self-aware enough to know that I couldn't pull it off. But just everything, and even now watching it as a grown-up, every line, every shot, everything they do is just like, oh, that was... Again, it was all ahead of its time. It was all new. And I think because it was so new at the time, now, I think there's something so hard when you have a unique concept of a movie to ever replicate it, whether it's in a sequel or do something similar. So I do think it kind of stands as a very unique movie.
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll do a couple of minutes at the end about the sequels. But for now, we're going to cross the spoiler line. So from now on, we're in a minute, we might be talking about how it ends. We're going to talk about everything in depth. So if you haven't seen this movie, pause this podcast, this video, and go and watch it. If you haven't watched it in a while and you want to refresh yourself before listening to everything we have to say, go ahead and do that as well. If not, we're going into the spoiler line. We're taking the red pill. So let's just start with the most important thing for any movie is entertainment. What's the first kind of entertainment that you think of when you think of this movie?
To go back to the roots of it, I feel like the reason it was so entertaining at the time, it almost feels like conclusion of everything from the 90s, basically. So even if you think about, there was little trickles of anime starting to come through, like Ghost in the Shell and Akira was coming over to the West. Kung Fu was starting to become more prominent in it. We had a lot of physical action starting to come up in the 90s as well. Then if you add on to comic books were starting to they were still nerdy,
but maybe more mainstream.
Video games were seen as quite edgy at the time. PlayStation would get people like David Lynch to do their adverts for them. So if you go back and look at old PlayStation adverts, they weren't trying to be nerdy or anything. They were like, oh, these are freaky adverts that were putting together. And then add on to the fact that the time when it came out as well was right before Y2K, and everyone was scared of technology. Everyone thought the world was going to end, and we were the computers were going to take over.
Point. It was a very unique time.
Trying to boil it down, obviously it feels very 90s. It feels very much like the end of the 90s, but also, it's very cool. It's just very action packed.
Yeah.
It's very stylish. It looks amazing. Sexy. They all everyone in it looks great. Everyone's got a great face. Very fashionable.
Yeah.
It feels very on point. The music and the score, everything goes together.
But again, all of those are things. It's I get what you mean about how they were a product of the 90s, but they're also so unique because people didn't really, no one mainstream dressed like that. The music is, it's a very, when you look up the genres of the music and stuff, it's new metal, rap, this and that. It's super, super niche genres. But I think that's it. The beauty of it is that it took a lot of things that were super niche from the music to the fashion, and it brought it, and they made it so cool that everyone, even the most mainstream person, said, oh, I think that looks great.
Yeah, because nu metal was cool at that point as well, because it was mixing two genres together, and obviously then techno was starting to come through as well, and it just felt very much almost like the film is like a mashup of so many different genres. The music went with it at the same time.
It almost feels, because obviously the music existed before them, but it very much does feel as though they were just listening to this and it's like, what is a movie that, because that type of music doesn't go with many movies. But what would be a movie this would work with? And they were
I'm sure we'll get into the legacy of it as well, but it's almost even the soundtrack to The Matrix 2 years later, people hated those genres of music because it became sort of too trite. But also it feels like a build up in terms of visually, because obviously stuff like The Crow and Blade and Dark City was when it was like a bit, because it's got a bit of a goth element to it as
definitely.
well. I mean, even if we'll go on to the actors bit, but they all look like ghosts basically.
Yeah, the sunglasses is a big
very
part
pale.
of that.
And then a film from the 90s called Hackers, which came out as well. So that was when it was it's so weird now though, because I remember at the time just being like things like floppy disks felt very cool and
modern, yeah.
And also in this as well, it was like the birth of like, it was like forget CDs, mini discs are where it's going to be.
I bought a couple of, because I think before it was kind of between diskettes and when CDs. And I remember buying the exact ones that he gives. And then I realized I can't fucking use these because they had such a short like lifespan that they were completely useless. But yeah, they looked cool.
Yeah, actually, in terms of mini discs, I'm not going back to the 90s. I only had one and had the Spawn soundtrack. If you ever seen the Spawn film, that is also awful. But it also is sort of pointing towards it. There's a few new metal tracks on that as well and a bit of techno as well. So it feels like it was just... But nowhere pulled every element together and felt this feels very much of a piece. Because I know I saw an interview and they basically said every idea and everything that they liked, they just tried to pull it. They didn't know if they were going to make another film again, put it all into this one film. And it works on paper, mixing every element and every genre, every influence, the look, like inventing new technology to do the special effect. On paper, it shouldn't work. And also, it's not an existing IP.
It weirdly reminds me. So I recently did the Fellowship of the Ring with Frosty. Make sure to check out that episode. But obviously completely different. But it was similar where that was, again, so risky, so high concept. But then in the end, it was so well crafted that it worked. But it's similarly, obviously, there was based on IP. So at least they had that going to it. They knew the story worked. But it just feels like if they'd gotten the wrong actors, if the costumes had looked a bit too cheap, if the music is such a big thing in Lord of the Rings. It's such a big thing in these movies. I've actually come doing this podcast and like studying detail by detail has made me appreciate the music so much more because every great movie has a good soundtrack. Like, otherwise, you're just a good movie. You're not a great movie. But yeah, so you mentioned the action. So for me, this is first and foremost an action movie. And I like that it's not high concept drama with a couple of actions. Like, no, this is a kick-ass action. I don't know what percentage of the movie is action, but it's got to be over 50%. And I think it's the type of movie that if you're like pumped up, you can watch it and like get like go with it. Or if you're feeling a bit groggy and you need something to pick you up, you can watch this movie and it's like really gonna get you going. Now, the biggest chunk. We're gonna go through the story. We're gonna do scene by scene. Some of them very quick. Some of them, they're some of our favorites. We'll spend more time on. So we start off. It's with the number screen. You said this was already it starts strong. So tell us about the first scene.
Because it sort of just dropped. That scene up until when we first introduced Neo, I think it's sort of super important because in terms of a big mainstream film. So you're looking at, it's going to be a sci-fi action film. The Warner Brothers logo comes up, and you can feel that score, which feels like operatic, but it feels like, I don't know if it is actually played on instruments or if it's like synthesized operatic.
I was trying to find a word to describe the digital sound, a digital screech almost is how I would describe it, but like there is no official word. The Matrix noise.
Which, because you actually hearing a lot of like modern musicians drop those sounds in now, and they mentioned the Matrix score as being like an influence on it, but I feel like you just hear the dialogue. And so I feel like
tracing of the core.
A normal film, and probably what happens in a lot of films that are influenced by this film, they'd be like, the year is 2199 or human rate. Like it goes, we're not going to give you any backstory. It's just the dialogue, the digital rain coming through. You get it feels very like noir. Like, the phone's being tapped, we need to, like, they're basically just dropping you straight into the mystery. And I think that's quite bold for a film of this type, especially something with this amount of backstory to it. And it's quite a heady concept. Like I said, another film would just give you the opening.
Yeah, but I think the whole point is that they're telling you, no, we know you're not going to understand anything for the first 45 minutes of this movie, and that's the point.
Yeah, and then obviously we cut to Trinity.
Actually, one thing before we go ahead, just kind of on a story, this whole scene, the fact that they were being tapped, this was Cypher's test, right? Because later on they say, I think they say at the end after the garbage truck, we know the mole is good or whatever. So the idea is that he basically, so he set her up to get killed, right? That is what happened. I just want to make sure I understood that right.
And then obviously you cut straight into, I mean, there's so many shots in this that feel like significant. It feels like really well lit, and then you're instantly like, oh, the world's green.
And dark and rainy.
And then obviously then you cut to the first what many people, it's probably one of the first things people think of with Matrix is the first bullet time appearance, and then the hover around.
You mean her jump?
Yeah, because also I think I've read somewhere that that particular shot has been spoofed by even when the
Simpsons
first
have done it. I've seen it in there.
and Shrek did
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So when we were watching it, when I was watching it with Yaz, she went, "Oh, like Shrek."
Only Yaz would think
like,
something for the Matrix.
I think Scary Movie did it as well, like a bunch of, but
it's like
straight away you're like, it's obviously a technology that they've come up with. You've never seen that shot before, and it's not dated now, but you're used to seeing similar.
I get you, but I'm thinking about it now. It still stands out. I can't think of anything comparable as like such a unique way of filming something. Like if anyone did anything close to you, say, yeah, you're ripping off the Matrix.
Well, it's because with the bullet time thing, they're slowing down. It's a mixture of the speed
and then the rotation.
Yeah. So you've just like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. Then you obviously have the rooftop chase, which still feels very like noir. Feels like the Vertigo has a rooftop chase in it. Then she just leaps over. Like
it's establishing a lot of the rules. Yeah. The fact that she can do this, he can do this. He's really strong. The humans are like, this is weird, but also we're not going to ask too many questions.
Yeah. I think one of the cops witnesses it, and then they cut to like a close up, and he goes, "That's impossible."
Yeah.
Which is obviously, you're just like straight away, you're just like, I don't know what the hell is going on in this film. Which is the only thing now I remember was Yaz was like, "Oh, I didn't know this was a superhero film." So straight away, it's because it's like the trope. But at the time,
Yaz watched it with you this recently, or are you talking about another time?
Yeah, like this year for the first time.
For the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of, like you said, it is kind of a superhero movie, but not because they have powers, because it's in a world where technically everyone has powers.
Yeah.
If they can use them properly.
So it's, but obviously at the time, there was nothing like that. One thing that is very specific and is like a key point is that everything feels physically there.
Yeah.
Like you can see the actors are doing it, even if they're comped in, you can see the actors' faces, you can see that they're real people. They're like, the buildings are real, the cars are real, like everything feels like it's got a texture to it. And also I noticed on this viewing especially, the sound design's amazing in it. Like you can hear every footstep, you can hear like everything's got a texture to it.
Yeah.
And then we have her going into the phone booth.
Yes.
And then that's an amazing shot as well. And then then the lorry crashes into the phone booth, and then she's disappeared. And then obviously you have the agent saying, like you said, about the mall. And then it cuts to Neo, which I think, obviously there's a few scenes like this in the first 45 minutes where I think it's constantly trying to tell you, is this a dream? Because he wakes up at several different points after something like fantastical's happened. But then, that I also think that next shot when Neo wakes up with him asleep and then the digital rain on his face is amazing as well. I feel like close-ups are quite a hard thing to get in films, and obviously there's people that are really, like Silence of the Lambs is something that's brought up a lot as in close-ups of the face. And I don't think I've ever spoke to anyone that mentions the close-ups in the Matrix specifically, but the way they shoot the faces,
the shot when we do the shots later, a lot of them are close-ups.
And then obviously it says "Wake up, Neo." And then
before that though, one thing I do want to hit upon now, because it's not something to come up later, is if actually I was thinking about if there's anything that's cheesy in it, is actually that shot of the exposition. Obviously the first time you miss it completely, but all the news articles about Morpheus. And I do think it's a bit cheesy because like obviously he's been obsessed with him for ages, but the idea that you're just, it's almost as if you had a shot of you and it's like, oh, I'm just looking up articles about the lighthouse right now. That's just okay, we get it. You like that movie and stuff. But because you do, and it is because it basically shows that he's a terrorist and he's like blowing things up. And you're like, oh, this Morpheus sounds bad. Obviously later on you understand because they do seem like terrorists if you lived in the Matrix. Like they keep destroying everything. But then obviously screen goes black. Wake up, Neo.
I think you can hear. Pretty sure you can hear rain, can't you as well? I think at that point
he's playing music. Isn't he playing music? He's wearing his headphones and
then can you see like the bars going up a green as well? Everything just got such a great like texture to it. Like at that point you hear as well, like you hear the clicking of the key. Like I think it's all quite like deliberately important, where this is obviously like a thing that it's looking into it too much maybe, but how like the Matrix is so designed for this specific person that they're focusing in on all the sounds of it a lot. But you feel like it's potentially could be a dream sequence because they replicate it again in The Matrix Reloaded. It opens with a Trinity action scene and it's Neo dreaming. Yeah, and then you like hear, and then I think the screen says knock knock, doesn't it?
Well, after telling him follow the
White Rabbit, which obviously an Alice in Wonderland reference. Then you have the reference to the philosopher in the book, and it just really sets it up. Like, but you can, the way that he's shot in it as well, you can tell he's someone that stays inside a lot. Like he looks pale. He looks like a hacker, even though he's like got very like what you'd say like a conventionally like pretty broad face, but he looks like he does also resemble a hacker.
Yes.
And his room
is horrible. It's such a shithole.
Like, you feel like you could probably smell that room.
Like rusted metal and like noodles probably. So then Troy and his gang arrive. Have you ever read what the disc actually was for?
No.
So I googled this because this is what I love about rewatching a movie for the 50th time. Is he's got all these like this. You could watch this for the 100th time and you still be like, well, why are they doing this and why are they doing that? So apparently there's an old draft or whatever. The scene is a bit longer. Apparently it's to hack into like the government system to get rid of parking tickets.
Oh, okay.
Which, when you hear it, because it gives him like $2,000 for it, I was like, oh, I thought it was something way more serious than that. So I think they just decided to shorten it, and it was like, I'm glad they did that.
So obviously we texted before about it. It's a weird thing where I don't think I ever necessarily focus on the dialogue when I'm watching this film. I just the whole film has a vibe to it.
You're so busy. I mean, you could spend a whole movie just listening to it, just focusing on the facial expressions. There's so many details you can never focus on everything. But it's fun rewatching and being like, I'm gonna focus just on the colors. You can on the shading for everyone.
And each shot feels specific as well. Like each shot feels like deliberate, and it's almost obviously that's where it feels like you're almost looking at panels from a comic book at times as well, where each illustration, each image is telling you a story as well.
I was thinking this on my last rewatch. Obviously more in the action scenes, but obviously not literally every shot, but in the action scenes, every shot is like has such a purpose. And obviously movies like this are heavily storyboarded, and you can see how they plan, probably a year ahead of time. There's like, at this shot, they're walking here. At this shot, they're looking over from this pylon. And
because I know that they worked in the comic book industry prior as well. And then they hired an actual professional comic book artist. They said something like, it was in one of the documentaries, I think he did 600 panels for the film to then go, because Warner Brothers apparently read the script and be like, oh, there's something here, I don't understand it. So then they paid this guy to do the visuals, and they're like, oh, okay, we know what you're doing now. But apparently still they had to shoot the opening scene. I was about to say like, that. Apparently they did that first, didn't they?
And they showed it, and then Warner Brothers like, here's all the money.
At this point now, you don't really have an idea. You've heard these voices, you don't know who they are.
You have no idea what's going on at this point. But like you said, it moves so well that you never, if there was a conversation at this point that went 2 or 3 minutes, you'd have time to be like, what the fuck? Like, you'd have time to maybe get bored, but there is no time. The next scene is in the bar, the chat with Trinity. My guess is that chat is no longer than 30 or 40 seconds. Then he's waking up, then he's going to work. He's being told off by his boss. He's in his office. That's probably like 1 or 2 minutes at most. Then he gets the phone. Morpheus is on the line.
I think the shot of that phone is amazing.
That is my favorite shots.
I can't think of anything that was specifically a shot of a mobile phone prior to this, so I don't know if it might not be the first, but it felt very significant. And just the flip and hearing that flip as well just felt so cool. And also the idea of him working like in like a faceless organization. The square cubicle thing feels very 90s as well.
So I was thinking about that. I think it was the speech and then the cubicle, and I was like, there's actually really strong parallels between this and Office Space, which came out the exact same year. So I think particularly that part, it's very much a commentary on the current like work culture about how we're all zombies that are isolated and stuff.
And also, like you said about the boss, like having worked in like some like corporate jobs and office jobs, it's almost like you are not talking to a person. Like it does feel like they've got like their view on everything.
They've given their lines and it's like say this to everyone.
Like the amount of times I've heard in my life, find solutions, not problems. It's like that feels like a robot's talking to me right now. But he almost feels like he is like one of the agents.
Which I mean he's not actually.
He's trying to keep him in line, and he's like, go and get ideas, do your job, and get out. Which is very much almost like the AI is treating humans in this world. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the end. It is very much later on. You're like he's very much saying because he says. You need to either stay in this system or find another job, which is basically you're either going to stay in the Matrix or you need to get out.
And I remember at that point as well, very specifically thinking, like as an 11 or 12-year-old, I was like, I ain't working in an office. already at that point. So it felt very like there's no like punk elements into it, but the whole film feels. I mean, cyberpunk, but like it feels like the ethos of like
a bit
the
of, bit
man.
Of anarchy.
Yeah.
So then gets the phone, the whole Morpheus thing. That's a cool. That's a bit. I think that's one of the. It's probably the most suspenseful. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of action, but this is not action. It's just like suspense, and it is quite. Again, maybe this is where also you learn to really fear the agents, even though they're not doing anything. You learn that they're to be feared.
Yeah, because you don't know what they're after. Do you just know they're after him?
Yeah,
basically at that point. And the voice is, you hear the voice again. So you've seen these articles about Morpheus.
Yeah, this is the introduction to Morpheus.
But you might not have even caught the articles necessarily, because you're what just happened in that scene.
I think another thing that's interesting is the fact that he basically doesn't go through with what Morpheus tells him. Which at the time you're like, if some random guy told you to climb off a building, you can totally understand him. And obviously, in movie making, they say there's got to be that sort of hesitation. It would be weird if he just jumped in with 2 feet. Then he gets arrested. Arrested.
Well, that also, as someone that has I hate heights so much, that feels so horrible, and the fact that whatever he's grabbing onto is shaking at the same time as well.
It's so scary.
So I was also just wondering, that's the only time I was like, if I was there, I don't think I could get back into the building. I think I would have just been literally frozen. Someone
Then he gets taken. He gets arrested. Trinity sees him, says, "Oh shit." Then I remember as a kid, this is that the crops is obviously the creepiest thing, the plugs, but this is the second creepiest thing about the thing going into his belly button.
This is where like horror comes into it as well.
And the mouth. And I was watching it this time. I was like, this is. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't need to be there because it's very Matrixy, but that feels very much like they could have just had him screaming with the thing going in there. But the mouth thing again, as a kid, you're like, very. It's almost like a mini horror movie.
Also, I remember as well as a kid. Weirdly, I never had any action figures for the Matrix. I remember you could buy an action figure with him without the mouth on. I remember that specifically.
I just think that's a Deadpool, like the shitty Deadpool.
But I feel like it's weird because I don't think body horror ever gets brought up in regards to the Matrix. But I'm more used to it now. But all the way through, the plugs and everything there's lots of things going into different people's bodies that shouldn't be going in there. And also it's quite a cool play on, because this could almost be like a espionage type idea, planting a bug on someone, but then the bug literally turns into an actual bug. And then just the shooting going in, it's horrible. But then again, he wakes up again. So then you're like, is it a dream
that's
again?
The ultimate, because that is the one where he obviously thinks it's a dream, because then when you get it out, they say, because this is real. That's
the third wake up in like 20 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah. So he wakes up, then he has the call with Morpheus. They pick him up at the Adam Street Bridge. Now you remember.
I also think that shot's amazing as well, because that
when the
very noir,
and
it's almost like the Blade Runner thing, where I think almost every scene in Blade Runner it's raining the whole time, and this feels I think
when it's in the Matrix, when it's nighttime, I think it's always raining. So at the beginning, and then most of the other times,
and just that shot of the outline of the bridge, everything still feels mysterious. Because at this point you're just like, what the hell is going on? There's so many different elements that they're just banging at you the whole time.
And kind of when they take the bug out, you go, well, at least I know where that came from. So then they get into the building. You meet without meeting the whole crew. We'll talk about more. We'll talk about them more in detail in the characters. Meeting Morpheus. So this is another one of your favorite scenes. It's such a great payoff from the voice, because Lawrence Fishburne is exactly the way he sounds.
And also, I think it's what's sort of strange about that scene is the introduction to him as well. He's sat down, isn't he?
No, he's standing up by the window, and there's the lightning in the background.
Right. Okay. Because
he sits down. He sits down in the big chair afterwards when he's explaining stuff to him. And he sat down when he does the pills.
Yeah. It almost feels, because you've been built up at this point going, who the hell's Morpheus? And he's just so still and quiet, but he's like commanding. Obviously he's got the foot length leather coat on as well, the glasses, and I think that whole scene's shot well, because it feels like evokes like a gothicness to it as well. It always feels like that some of these shots feel like impossible shots, because the reflection that you can see, you can always see Neo as well when he's looking at it, and it's just, I don't know, and it's I think the frame's like here the whole time.
You're talking about the close up with the pills.
And you can just feel how they shot this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure with editing it's like easy, but it looks at the time, it looks so natural.
And I think also that's the first moment where you realise like surfaces are really key in this film as well, like reflective surfaces. Feels more literally a surface level element to it.
I've read a lot of analysis about the metaphor of like what the mirror means and stuff. But so I'm rewatching that scene. what's interesting is he's sort of explaining without explaining.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
one of the big questions is, well, why couldn't he just told him everything at this point?
Yeah.
But then you understand, A, he would never have believed him. Like, you need to see it to believe it. But yeah, he very much introduces him to the concept, the whole, it's a prison that you can't smell, touch, or anything.
I think it's obviously the red pill, blue pill is one of those elements that's like in pop culture, but obviously for a really bad reason as well, which is so funny that these are actual trans filmmakers. So the men's right activists, not even activists, but like the movement coined that red pill thing. It still gets, even the recent elections, it gets brought up, that idea of the red pill thing, which is so strange, but that feels very iconic.
Yeah, it's one of, I have that in my top shots as well.
The mirror shot as well. I think that's probably, we'll go into it later, that's probably one of my favourite shots in the whole
one
film.
you mean when he touches it and it, or
no, when he first looks into it and it's like
split.
scatters. Yeah, it's split in a few different directions. And then obviously when he touches it, that very much feels almost like T2. Type of effect as well. And all the actors are going, not the actors, all the supporting characters are going, he's going to flatline. You feel like he might die, but you don't.
You have no idea what's going on.
And then the shot going into the mouth, again, is horrible. But it's got that effect, like that noise effect going on again, and then that's when you see the real world for the first time.
Yeah,
which again
doesn't makes no sense the first couple of times. You're like, what? So goes through the sewers. Oh, when he obviously
pops,
everything pops. Obviously, he's just this really frail, pale thing, and then he falls into the sewers, which are just disgusting. Picks up reconstruction of the muscles.
And he says, it's one of my favorite lines when he goes, "Oh, my eyes are sore." You've never used them before.
So I only picked up that line literally this last time, which was this morning, because they're talking about the muscles. It's like, they've atrophied, we're rebuilding them. And then I don't think I ever heard what Neo said. And then they said, you've never used them. I always thought they were talking about the muscles, which is technically true as well. But I think this last time I was like, wait a second, what is he saying? My eyes hurt.
Well, it's because they resemble like babies, don't they?
Exactly. They're giant babies. Well, here's a technical question. What are they doing with the needles that just builds muscles? Because I don't get the medicine behind it.
Isn't it like acupuncture?
Well, but I don't think acupuncture builds muscles.
It's like it's just something to gloss over.
But it's funny because there's so many details like this that if you Google, someone has a really good answer. Whether it's the Wachowskis wrote that this, or they answered it, or it's someone on Reddit that's come up with a theory and everyone's gone, oh yeah. So
we see the ship as well for the first time, and this feels very.
Do we see it from the outside or only from the inside?
You see it sort of from the outside, don't you? But there's a shining light, and it's shot from behind him while he's been like lifted up, like a Messiah. It's almost like that Messiah image again.
I can't, because I know there's a shot later on. I think it's when they see the first Sentinel, when they set it down and it goes down into a sewer, and it's a combination of, I think you see the ship in its full, but you also see the old sewers, which used to be like cities and stuff, and it sets down. And it's like, whoa.
Because I also feel as well that it really evokes like steampunk.
I mean, that's the number one thing that's associated with it.
And the ship is obviously very physical. It's obviously like a set, but also the ship doesn't feel like a spaceship. It almost feels like a submarine. Like
I mean, it is basically. It's kind of
Morpheus feels like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. But obviously, it evokes that sort of period, that like element to it as well. So it's very like run down. It's very raggedy. You can hear it's almost like you can hear the rust in the ship as well.
You were talking about the steampunk. This is one thing for me personally. These are not things like I never wanted to like suddenly, have a mohawk or like pierce my nose or like any of I never bought in to the whole steampunk thing for myself, but I still very much appreciate it in a movie, which I think is such a balance and basically saying, hey, you can appreciate this without, being fully in it.
Because obviously the whole idea with like the steampunk thing is it comes from Victorian literature of them thinking of what the future could be like.
I have heard that.
So then obviously like it's almost like that, it does feel like it was almost tangible, but it's not. So almost like the Nebuchadnezzar is like a submarine. Almost, that's what it feels like to me.
You mentioned the name Nebuchadnezzar, so I did a quick Google about what it is. So, do you know what it is? So it's an old Babylonian king, and I'm sure if I dig far enough, I would have figured out the link, but I did not. I did not do it for here. For me, I've been trying to do this more recently, and I'm curious. Obviously, you're a movie expert as well. Whether you agree with, I've tried to figure out what the acts were. So for me, once he wakes up, that's the end of Act 1, beginning of Act 2. Would you concur with that?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because it's
it almost feels like it's a bookend, doesn't
Yeah,
it? Like it feels like
if it was an
a
episode,
TV
if it was a
show,
TV show, yeah, they would chop it up into that. So he wakes up. We're introduced to Nebuchadnezzar. We're formally introduced to the crew and Tank and Dozer.
What's interesting about that is how everyone looks really great in the Matrix, and instantly they look disheveled.
Yeah. Well, so that's a great point because that brings me perfectly. So the next thing they do is they get uploaded into the training program, and then he has the whole thing where he's back to looking himself. And so the residual image is exactly what you were talking about. Here's my question for fun. What would your residual image of yourself be?
Don't know. It's a hard question to drop on someone. I don't know.
I mean, I wasn't looking for anything. I think it's kind of like your average view of yourself. And I was thinking for me, I would probably be just like cozy at home and like my sweatpants and and a hoodie. It's not particularly glamorous.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because theirs is interesting because his Morpheus is wearing like a very dapper suit and a tie, and Neo is just dressed in black and like a jacket, like not even a nice jacket, just like very plain.
Well, also I think with their looks as well, going on to know about the Wachowskis later in life, when they're in the Matrix and to an extent in the real world as well, everyone feels very androgynous.
That's true.
Like,
I get you, but also Trinity wears some very tight-fitting clothes, so they are definitely trying to make
her hair's very like...
that's true. I did always, as a kid, as a straight boy, I did always think she's obviously beautiful, but she's like, actually, you're right, she's quite
quite striking.
Yeah,
even
Link
Neo. I mean, I also put adding sunglasses as well to the effect of. One thing that's like a bit of trivia as well is the character of Switch was called Switch because originally they would be different genders depending on where they are, and also they're the only
she's very but she's meant to be obviously she's meant to be in a couple with APAC, right? I don't know if that's explicitly said, but it's very
that's why she was called Switch, is because they would be like a different gender. And also I feel like she's the only one that wears white. Everyone else is wearing black as well. Apparently that's something that Warner Bros. Did not want in 1999. But yeah, it just feels like this is the only... It's like, when you're trying to sort of like break it down, are we assuming that each individual person... So say if we were in the Matrix now, that we would have our own Matrix?
No. We're all in a communal one.
Because then it's like when someone dies, because everyone could be taken over by a...
But the way I see it is that when they take over, basically the computer in the real world, the computer program is just going into the crop wherever that particular person is and infecting them and taking over. So we are all in. There's just one Matrix.
Because it just feels weird, because then it's like, why are they deciding different things for different people based on if they're trying to get the most like life expectancy out of people?
Because I think you're talking about from the machine's point
and
of
also
view.
like a lot of the background characters that we don't have names for feel like NPCs in the video game, so it almost feels like no one's got personality.
That's the thing. That's the point. Is that people who are living in actual humans who are in the Matrix are pretty much all drones because they're living in this boring world.
So we're sort of thinking when they start to get more personality, that's when they
start questioning things. Yeah.
It's like just a weird concept, isn't it? It's one of those things that when you go into it a bit more, it feels... Because in the fourth one, they kill themselves to try and attack Neo and Trinity. They're diving out of their window.
Yeah, which makes sense because the agents obviously don't care.
But yeah, it's like almost like that disregard for life, but they need the...
Well, they definitely are. Like in this one, Agent Smith, at the end, when he tries to kill Neo, he's holding him with the train, which would obviously kill both of them, but then he would just move off. So
I mean, also another thing to think of, that when you actually try and deep in, where are these babies coming from?
Well, I think they say they're not.
Grown,
Morpheus says they're grown, so they're just taking the eggs and stuff and they're growing them in a lab.
Strange,
it's so strange.
And then your body is mashed up and then feeding the babies.
Yeah, which again, it's well thought through. But that takes us nicely into the Morpheus 5-10 minute explaining it all. Which
that's another like great shot.
Yeah. Well, which one specifically?
The one where they're both stood. It's like a long shot, and they're both stood on either side.
And the white.
TV. Yeah. Because that also feels very much like a training module on the video game. They've let you like get into this entire world and sort of be what the hell's going on, and they wait 45 minutes in to then be like, okay, what is the... Because I think Yaz literally said, what is the Matrix? And then Morpheus goes, what is the Matrix?
I mean, and Neo keeps asking at the beginning, and it can seem almost cheesy at the beginning, but then when you rewatch it, you're like, we're all fucking wondering that. So it is a big relief to get it. I think they do it. Again, it took me as a 9-year-old a few times and someone explaining it to me, but once you're like, oh yeah, no, it makes sense.
And it's quite concise as well, isn't it? They don't I don't think they push it too much either. They're basically just like, here's what it is, here's what happened. And also I think one of the uses being younger, being like, what is AI? And now it's obviously still everything's about AI.
Yeah, they say about in the year whatever it is that they became sentient
Yeah.
and they started,
which feels very much Terminator.
Yes,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah, very much. Yeah, I very much enjoyed basically because you say, wait, how do you go from AI to crops of humans and needing the Matrix and the whole? They needed the sun, we blocked the sun, so they used us as batteries. Like, I think this time in particular, I was like, oh, you can imagine them brainstorming. It's like, we've got an idea, it's the Matrix, they need to control us. It's like, well, why do they need that? And they go, because they need us as batteries because we blocked out the sun. And it's like, oh, that's...
Also, it doesn't feel over the top either, does it? In terms of like...
Makes sense.
The way that like governments and countries work now, they'd rather hurt themselves just to win, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
you never block out the sun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they did technically, but because they do actually say the Matrix takes place in 1999 at the apex of civilization. And I think the implication is that there was probably a war it could have been decades after that. Also, that brings me on nicely to when he's giving his explanation, there is a couple of times he's like, we don't really know. And that's, to me, I think that foreshadows the whole thing that happens in the sequels where they're like, there hasn't been just one Matrix and one Zion. The idea that of the rebooting and the cyclicity. Because theoretically, if the world, but been nuked and everything, and a couple of people dug down and built Zion, and then they started taking people out of the Matrix. There would be continuity. The people in Zion was like, no, we know that it's been 200 years since whatever.
Yeah.
So, and it's probably been. He says we're in the year 2100 something.
Yeah, because I know when the architect is speaking to him, he basically says
in the sequel we're talking about.
They kick back to the beginning of the 20th century and then start again, and then they get to 99 and they keep going back. And I think he said there's been numerous versions of Neo. The idea of the Matrix covers so many things that we hear of in normal life as well, because they're basically ghosts, that's like everything's like something from the Matrix, it's like a bug or something from the Matrix, so it like covers everything. Obviously deja vu as well, which we'll get into later.
That's one of them. So this scene ends, I think, I can't remember what it is, I think it's the crops is when he basically overwhelms and he throws up, then he falls asleep, then they have a conversation sort of like, I can't go back, which would absolutely be the first thing you would think, so I don't blame him at all.
Also, the one thing that I forgot to mention is literally the stabbing in the back of the head all the time. That probably freaked me out the most, and with the noise along with it, and just the idea of something going in, the sounds, everything that brings up, I'm just like, that must be like, that almost reminds me of what brain freeze, like is it like that, like a massive amount of brain freeze? And that's obviously, again, it's not.
And you do it over and over.
Yeah, over and over.
I think it's when he first wakes up when he's clothed this last time, and he pulls. And you can tell from his expression, it's not hurting him. It's a bit like, when you're at the hospital and they've set something up. Once the plug is there, it's fine. But you can tell he's just like, this feels
very relatable.
Super weird.
Yeah, when you've had like a needle removed.
Yeah. So he wakes up, he asks if he can go back, he's told no, and then kind of as the follow-up from the intro, he basically is like, one thing I didn't get to was the one, and he explains about the one and stuff. I think now's as good a time as any to talk about the one, like it's kind of at the center of it. Probably, if anything, it's probably the least original concept of the whole movie, because it's very, later on we're going to be doing our box set of dystopian movies, but one thing I did consider was about movies that revolve around the one. There have been enough, there have been a good amount, but I don't think it was enough to kind of pick 10 good ones. But obviously, the ultimate one, Jesus Christ, the Bible, very Star Wars.
Superman, like Harry Potter.
This idea of I think the two keys is someone with big power. That's it's preordained, and usually the person doesn't want to do it, which I think are also the in Dune. What's his character's name?
Where it's almost like the idea that this individual's been created to like restore balance to everything and for all three people. There's probably there's loads.
There's loads, but I mean it's the fact that again the Bible is the ultimate one, and I'm sure it's something in Greek mythology which is found a lot, and fairy tales has found a lot.
It's obviously something that now it feels it's overused. Like it almost feels like so many comic book films, especially, it's like this one particular person at this particular time.
Yeah, although, I mean, with comic books, I guess you could say, like you said with Superman, I feel like it's different there, because it's not as though he was chosen, is that he was someone special was put in a situation, whereas here it is this idea. And I think it's because it's something that's so supernatural. This idea that there's billions of people and that one random person is chosen to do something supernatural. It assumes some sort of religiosity. So obviously if you believe in God, then that's fine. You might believe in that. But even in that, there is nothing. I guess the only one is about the idea there might be a reincarnation of Jesus one day, and that could be anyone.
Also, I guess you could relate it to, in terms of like real life. It's when like one individual, for good or bad, has had such a massive impact on the whole of the world, and it's that one person. It's that idea, isn't it?
And I guess the reason it's so appealing is, despite the fact that all the characters we talked about kind of fight against it, but everyone wants to feel special. Yeah. Everyone wants to feel like they're the one of their own lives. So I think that's probably why. That's the thing. I don't love the concept, and I get the sense you don't either, but I guess there's something, even if we don't on a surface level, there's just something that appeals to it as a species, because, everyone wants to be special.
But I know he fights against it, don't he? And it's like, because he even says, I don't like the idea of it, because I don't want to
I don't like the idea that someone else is like, yeah.
The whole thing with him is that it's almost that, it gets brought up in like politics quite a lot, where person that wants... power is the word. It's a person that shouldn't have power,
and the person who doesn't.
I think that comes up in this as well.
I don't think they use the word. I think it's in June that he says, I don't want to do this. And he's like, and that's why you need to be the person to do it. So next is the training montage. Yeah. So when Tank comes in and says, I'll be your operator. And the jujitsu and the kung fu and stuff, which is such the apex of this is later on when Trinity gets taught how to use the helicopter, because you actually see it directly. But that's just, again, as a kid, you're like, oh, this would be so cool if I could just learn anything with a diskette plugged into me for 10 hours.
Also, it feels very much, because my nan loved kung fu films, and I feel like, again, this is an example of it being brought into like a big mainstream Western film. And obviously the year after Crouching Tiger comes out, but it's something that it feels super fresh in this context as well. I think that's probably the only scene that feels more the most humorous elements of it.
Yes, that's true. You mean the
stances, and because it's like fighting. Neo's like, because he's like fight, and Neo's trying to act.
Stop trying to hit me and hit me. Yeah, you're right. That
one is feel like Neo's watched a kung fu film. It's like, okay, I need to do this and do all the stance, and he's trying to be something. He's trying to copy something when they're just like, you need to. I mean, it's like a mind-boggling concept, isn't it? That you've got.
And again, the music is very. You're saying that more lighthearted. The music is very fun there, because there's no stakes. There, we know neither of them is going to kill the other, whatever. It's just about him learning it. And I did realize that again on this rewatch, that in the same way that Neo is very much being spoon-fed this, you need to believe that you can do it and stuff. Obviously, it's important for the characters. If you're just like, oh yeah, no, great, I'm amazing, it'd be a pretty boring movie. But the other thing is, it's basically preparing you as the audience to believe the ending when he's suddenly able to stop bullets and do all that stuff. Because you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Again, it's what brings up the video game element to it as well, because obviously by the end he's like a god. Which also, what's quite funny as well in relation to being a video game is, as a player, I've always hated training modules. It's like, I want to get on, and he's obviously getting frustrated at this point as well, and it reflects that, where you need to know what buttons to press, and it feels very much like that. Which obviously then again, going back into the loading screens and everything, that almost reflects, because that feels very much like PC video game as well, where they'd just be typing code in to build these games.
There's never any implication like a controller or anything.
Because that's also quite strange as well. They're like watching code a lot of the time, aren't they? And they're like, but they can read it.
That's a weird. I mean, again, I guess it makes sense if you don't think about it too hard, because I guess because they have all the screens, so I guess is that on one screen is like a very particular part of the matrix. It's not the whole matrix.
Oh, this is the first time where they introduced the speed thing, where his hands go like that, and you can see multiple things at once.
At the end of the culmination of this is the jump, and the whole. That's actually, I guess, and I was saying that the only bit of suspense really was when the agents are chasing him, but you do actually feel a bit of tension when it's like, is he gonna make the jump? And then he falls. One note I had is, so they've obviously, because this is a training module, it's not real life, so he bounces. Feels like they could have given him a second bounce. Like they could have programmed it so he bounces twice.
I also love that shot as well, where they first load into that bit, and then it goes zoom down and then the zoom up. That looks really cool.
Looks amazing.
But also, what I think it plays into a later scene where, because he falls down and then he flings back up, and I know there's an element where they go, if you die in the Matrix, you die in real life.
Which I think is a very important. You need to make that clear.
Even at that point, even being told that, you don't feel like that could happen because of the bounce. And I think when it comes to that Cypher scene later, that's a lot more haunting, because he is like, literally, that's where it feels like, the threat is actually real. Because it does, the video game element, like, again, in the video game where you can just like, you die, reboot the whole thing again.
That would be a very different movie if there were no stakes. Then we got the woman in red training montage, which is like quite iconic, and that one again is a bit funny. So I guess there are this bit, because we go a good actually, until this point, we go a good 20 minutes without even thinking of the agents. Maybe they get mentioned in passing, but it's very much, again, if it was a TV show, this would be like your second 25-minute episode, which is all the montage, and it would probably build up to going to see the Oracle.
Well, the only thing in regards to that, that's when Mouse almost feels like a bit ahead of his time in terms of like, he's just like a little perv.
Yeah.
Like a digital pimp. That's what I think he even says. That
he says I can set you up with her, and then Switch is the one who says a digital pimp, and then he goes like, ignore these barbarians. I think he even says I'm ahead of my time stuff.
And that feels like you know that guy is in a basement somewhere right now. It can code and porn.
Yeah, I think because it's not a huge cast, but it's not an insignificantly. It's not like there's 4 or 5 of them. There's like 7 or 8.
Reminds me of Aliens.
Yes,
the crew.
Yeah, except they all die at once. But I think they do a lot with very little, each one of them. But so Woman in Red, then the Sentinel attack comes, so that brings us. Actually, again, you know what? There's a lot of tension in this movie because that is quite tense. And then obviously introducing the electromagnetic pulse, which I did not know what that was when I was that age. And you know what? The only other movie I can think of that uses it, Ocean's 13. They use it to shut down all the power in Vegas for like a couple of minutes, and they use an electromagnetic pulse out of Don Cheadle's.
I feel like electromagnetic pulse is just a line that's plopped into like so many blockbusters.
Yeah, but it's really,
you know what it means.
Yeah. Like, this is a very specific thing. I cannot hear especially EMP, but whenever I hear it, I think of The Matrix. There's so many things because it just, as you said, it brings so much, and it was such a such a linchpin of culture and everything. There's so many things. We might even try to do an experiment, like try and see how often you actually think of The Matrix unprompted. Like I bet it's the sort of thing like once or twice a week, even if it's just for a second.
Like the Roman Empire.
Yeah, I'm sure millennials think about The Matrix more than we think about the Roman Empire.
That's one thing as well. When going back, I've only just like thought of it now, thinking of the Nebuchadnezzar as like a submarine. All the robots feel like alien but almost like fish and bugs. It feels they're obviously metallic but very organic as well.
Yeah, well, they got the tentacles. Very, very squiddy. But so this is one of those very random things that you might not notice for 50 times. Have you ever noticed that when they come and they're waiting for the EMP that Morpheus puts a hat on?
Yeah, the beanie.
So I actually can't even. I always thought it was a beret. I never thought beanie. It could be a hat. Do you know why he does that? So I don't know. No one knows for sure, but I did a little bit of a dive on this. Some people theorized it's because he came from a military background. Right. So because they're like, oh, we're going to war, he's putting his beret on. Some people thought it was because of his bald head and he wants to like hide the shine.
The shine,
Another one is that because they turned all the power off, it's getting cold. So he's putting it to keep his head warm. I don't even know which one of those is my favorite, but I love the fact that on Reddit there's like multiple threads of people saying why. and the funniest thing is you'll find it and it's like, probably 10 years old. And then there's someone 2 years ago who's like, oh my God, I was thinking about this and I'm so glad other people have been thinking about it. But I'm sure if you ask the Wachowskis, I'm sure they have a reason. Because it's a very specific thing to do there's not actually a reason to do it.
Everything, again, it goes back to everything's deliberate.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the next scene is Neo and Cypher having the conversation where he sort of startles him. Here's just a question. I think it's pretty straightforward. So they're drinking whatever they have as alcohol. He's just giving that to him to knock him out, right? So he can go into the Matrix.
I feel like with Cypher, number one, like, Joey Pants needs to be in more films because I think he's absolutely fantastic. But also his look. This might be reading too much into it. He has like a devilish look to it.
Yeah. He's like his mustache and stuff. He's so well cast. He's perfect. We're going to do the cast and characters later. We're going to do a modern recasting, and we haven't included him in our main 4, but I did think of a couple of people. I'm curious about what you think of that because it's a very particular like ratty, devilly look. Yeah, and he's. The one interesting thing, I'm getting ahead of myself, but one interesting thing about him is that he knocks Neo out and then he goes to meet with the Ages, which is weirdly one of my favorite scenes, actually. But up until then, we didn't know specifically that he was bad. We were just sort of suspicious of him. But I noticed on this last one with the alcohol that he gives him a cup of it and Neo's like looking at it really dodgily, and it's only when Cypher takes a sip that he does it. Now, I don't know if it's because he just doesn't know what it is or if he doesn't trust him, but I do get this sense there's a couple of times in exchanges between him and Neo where you can just see that Neo doesn't trust him. So I guess it maybe shows that he got a good gut feeling about
It's also that weird thing that he feels like the most relatable character.
Yeah.
So, like when you've started at a workplace, you don't want... I mean, this has always been me. I don't like the person who's like, oh, hi, yeah, everything's fantastic here. I like the person who's like, oh, this place is like, it's bad to work.
Yeah, because he's very negative. Like, we don't want to be here.
But he's like charming.
Yeah, I mean, he's slimy.
Yeah. But he plays that role. He's in Bound as well, and he's absolutely fantastic.
Okay, I'm gonna have to watch
very
that.
Sweaty man in Bound, but there's he almost he feels like the devil on your shoulder type thing, where he's like, oh, isn't this?
He's
like
saying,
that?
well, yeah, they're all thinking.
And also, I don't know if you feel like I feel like he likes Neo because it's weird because it's almost like he's trying to put Neo off straight away. But based on what he's going to do later, I don't know what the aim is with that.
I don't think he likes or dislikes Neo as a person. I think he's well. I think the main thing is that he's jealous because he knows that Trinity is kind of into him, and he's sort of into he's into her.
Well, it's also at the beginning where he's like, "Oh, we're going to end up killing him."
The line I don't fully understand. Because he doesn't even say we're going to end up killing him. It almost sounds like we're going to kill him. Like we're deliberately. But yeah, I think it is more what you're saying that we're going to end up killing him. He's going to die because of us.
Yeah, so it's almost like he doesn't.
I think he's quite indifferent, but he's just like he's a nihilist. And by this point, he's obviously made his plan from literally the beginning of the movie. He's betrayed them. So I don't think he's that emotionally invested. But he also, because he doesn't care, no one else suspects him. So it does seem like, I mean, to be fair, if you're Morpheus, you probably would be pretty trusting because the fact is what these people have been through, and his whole plan of getting plugged back into the Matrix is pretty extreme. So obviously that scene is great. To be honest, that scene is the most important Joey Pants scene. So I think we'll talk about it basically it's going to come up in the Cypher bit, it's going to come up in the best quotes bit, it's going to come up in the best shots bit. So I think at this point we can just keep going
back to like the economy of storytelling again. Like it's not dragging any scenes out. It's going, this is like what you need to see, this is what you need to see, and then we're going on to the next like scene again, because moving quite quickly at this point now. Another
thing, and I think this does belong in this section, I'm realizing now, is at this point we've been in the Matrix for a little while. And actually, most of the time we're in the Matrix, it hasn't looked particularly nice. This is probably the nicest Matrix scene because it's a fancy restaurant, the colors are quite bright, the steak is delicious, and it is quite an interesting reminder of, oh, this is what it looks like, and this isn't actually, this isn't something we've seen before, and we even won't see anymore. You almost wonder if they made, like, the Matrix coders were like, make sure that everything look better for him so that we can con him and stuff. And then after that, there's the tasty wheat where we see what they eat. That feels more of someone was like, what do they eat in this world? And it's they eat this, it's disgusting.
Like protein. Like pure. It's almost like when you see in like a lot of like science fiction.
Like in an Alien or whatever. I imagine that's what they eat. And then you get some more mouse stuff. That's a bit of a funny scene. And then they decide to go to the Oracle. The whole arriving, like they could have done that in 10 seconds, but the whole arrival thing is about a minute and a half. But it just looks so cool. Go to the Oracle. They have the drive. Blah blah blah. Seeing the Oracle, obviously one of the most important scenes, and you put it as one of your favorites.
Because it's something a scene that in like a lesser film would be really cheesy, because it is playing on a trope of like this magical person that knows everything. But I think what's sort of key in it is and it became like another like parody thing, like there is no spoon sort of thing. But the way that the Oracle speaks to him, she feels very relatable. The with age comes wisdom sort of like trope, but she was very friendly. And where she's like, oh, you're not the one, sorry to let you down. That's very key to his story, because up until this, he's only had smoke blown up his ass up until this point.
It's ironic you said that, given that she smokes.
But he's like, oh, I can't be the one. I don't feel like I'm the one, sort of thing. And it's key in regards to the decision he makes later. Which then is almost like him becoming the one is because of his actions.
Okay, this is the perfect time to talk about it then. She says you have the gift, but you're waiting for something. And I mean, then I guess to throw him off, maybe your next life. Obviously, that's not it. He has the gift, but he then needs to embrace it and realize that he is. But obviously, it's a whole chicken and egg thing that she knows that he has to do that by himself. So for him to realize that she has to tell him that he's not, it's like to kind of go on that journey.
Because if she confirmed to him that he was the one, then like it just like it's pointless, isn't it? Also, he
wouldn't believe it because he doesn't believe. I mean, like she says, you don't believe in all this crap.
Also, when what did she say? She says, "Watch out."
The vase. The vase is such a good. It says that what's really going to mess with your noodle is whether you would have done. I think I have that in my favorite quotes as well.
I think also there's a combination of it. Yeah, it feels like you've entered someone's house, but it also feels like a doctor's waiting room.
100%.
And all these other people that are in there going like, they're all the other.
The potentials.
Yeah.
What again? There's something I googled. What do you remember? What are the potentials?
I sort of viewed it as like potential like other ones.
So that's what I thought, and I googled it. And some people think that, but that doesn't actually make any sense. People think that they're potential people to be taken out of the Matrix, which I think there's some bits here that don't fully make sense if you dig on them, because I don't think they're potential the ones. The theory is that because they're kids, and there's that whole thing, we don't take out people out before a certain age, so they think that they're people who are being candidates to being extracted. And one of the things that confirms that is in the sequel when he gets given the wooden spoon. So the idea is that child was extracted and then now is living on Zion and sort of sent him the spoon.
It also feels very like X-Men as well.
Yes, as well. But then I don't know. So my other thing, why did they have powers? Because Neo wasn't able to do anything before he was taken out of the Matrix. I don't see why these kids would have
powers now. Unless potentials could also mean that they're like former potentials because they've already been maybe extracted. I don't know.
But again, taking the sequel I think if you don't have the sequel, there's very much left open interpretation. But the fact that that child, the spoon, was taken out and then sent him. Well, I guess we're gonna have to leave that one. We're gonna have to leave that one unresolved. Okay.
I think isn't this the element where Trinity says that she's seen the Oracle as well, and then the Oracle told Trinity something, then she doesn't reveal it at that point.
Yes, which builds up for later. So the Oracle told her is that she would fall in love with the one.
Yeah.
So that's So then they get in the car, they drive back. I think just to me, so not the end of the second act, but it's not exactly the middle of the movie, but it feels very much like the midpoint of we've gotten to this big thing, and now everything goes to shit. So the agents come, they kill everyone.
That's like where it feels like, oh, actually the threat is real.
Yes.
Because then you see them dying in the Nebuchadnezzar as well.
So we'll talk about it a lot more in the shots. But great action scene. There's them
hiding in the walls.
Morpheus jumping out at him. Great fight between the two of them. That's
when Neo goes, "Don't do it." He's like, "Don't do it. I'm not worth it." And Morpheus just.
I don't think he says that, but that's the implication. But then obviously, it's been 5 minutes since we've been told you're gonna have to choose between their lives. And then obviously the big Cypher betrayal. That's obviously it is still primarily action, but the suspense in this about that scene with the pulling the plugs and that his point about, and it's in one of my quotes, over here all I do is pull a plug, over there you have to watch APOC die Switch die. That's brutal. And
when she goes the only thing that's like, if I had to pick any negative about any of the characterization, is that like their names but you don't I don't feel anything for APOC when he died. Like it doesn't.
I do.
It doesn't like feel.
Spoiler when I was saying he was the one who was my favorite character when I was
because they're like they are very much supporting characters at that point. Their names, but it's funny with her like line reading of like not like this.
But that's I love that.
But that feels so alien as well to an extent. That feels.
But I think that is one of my favorite lines, and it's just one of those random lines. If I hear something similar to it, like if something says, "Oh, not like this," I just think of her because she's been such a badass. She's been totally hard and everything, and she just is faced with her own mortality.
That's the only time where it's implied that they were a couple, isn't it? That's
because she's like devastated.
I mean that scene's amazing. That's where Cypher feels like I think he's incredibly important to the whole idea of the film, but that's where the menace
that's interesting. We'll talk about it more on his character, but I hadn't really thought about sort of like his importance to it.
And then he basically is like, if he is the one, then someone will. He was like, I can't kill him.
It's like, and then I love, actually, again, the script here is good. I think when we were texting about it, it's not as though it's not David Fincher dialogue back and forth, but it's just very efficient. It's short and sweet. But then the thing when
it's like a comic book again. It's like they're normally quick lines.
He says to her, do you believe that he's the one? And she hesitates, and then she goes, yes, and it cuts to him, no, and then he has the reaction.
He goes, no, I don't believe it, but because she can't see what's going on the other side.
He does say, I don't believe it, and then Tank with the take this, you sack of shit.
That's one of the only times where that feels more like a generic action, with the one line after you've killed someone.
Yes. So I think we'll talk about that a smidge more when we talk about that particular character, because now that I know his backstory And in that documentary he shows a lot of his previous work. And I actually do think he's a decent actor, but he's very over the top cheesy.
Yeah.
And now last time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, he's literally just like, so I know I only have 20 lines, but I'm going to like do everyone like I'm in the middle of a Shakespearean play.
And then I think that's when we realize that Morpheus is being tortured.
Yes. So there's a couple of shots of him. There's like the intro, then there's the Agent Smith. But he's captured, he's tortured. We know what they're doing. They're about to kill him. They decide not to. There's like some strong dialogue there. And then they decide to break him out. Guns.
Yeah.
Lots of guns. I mean, obviously this last 30, 40 minutes is like very good. And like, it's the pinnacle of the movie. But I think from a storytelling point of view, we can go through it pretty quickly.
It's just like style, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's also...
They spend 5-10 minutes shooting everyone in the lobby. Then they spend 5-10 minutes shooting everyone on the roof. Then they bring down, they shoot everyone. They get him, crash the helicopter, get Morpheus and Trinity out. Subway fight.
Yeah.
So this was one of your favorite scenes as well.
Yeah, from that point on, it's basically action. There's the element of he needs to find a phone as well. There's like a chase element.
That's fun. That's one of the. I think again, there's some. I guess with Mouse, there's some comic relief. He's definitely the comic relief character. But in terms of like, you actually laugh out loud, and it's meant to make you laugh. I feel like that guy took my me and my friend we used to watch it all the time. That was literally the line. It would be like, oh, that guy took my phone.
It's also like cool the action. Especially because when I had to do it for college and going into the editing, there's different types of shots all the way through that and different speeds and different points. But the score is going along with like the bullets as well. There's like, you've got which is something that comes up a lot now, is the overemphasis on the pops from
every
the
single pop. Yeah, when he does the minigun and he's like. And then the falling of I got that in my favorite shots, the falling of the bullets.
Yeah.
Just...
But it's also like how great that action scene is in particular.
I mean, which one? There's like, there's like 3 or 4 that
Go into a bit more detail, but I think also The Matrix almost ruined action cinema for about 10 years because people were taking people like this element.
Unfortunately, that's like cinema. Anytime, they made Gladiator and it was like, well, you have to make Troy, this is tangent. But like, I saw Air Force One before I saw Die Hard, and I love Air Force One. I'm doing it on this pod one day. We'll probably do Die Hard as well one day. But then when I read that Air Force One was just one of those many movies that were all rip-offs of Die Hard, I was like, I see it, and I can see that's why a lot of people probably like Die Hard more than Air Force One. I was like, but for me, Air Force One was the original.
But it's also like the editing, it knows. Again, each shot is like great,
especially in the action scenes.
You can see everything going on. What's also key is you can see it's them as well. Like, there was obviously stunts involved in it as well, but I think it's really important, especially in action like cinema, to feel as realistic as possible.
Yeah,
and seeing actual people do stunt, because essentially it's like a gratuitous scene, isn't it? Like a room full of NPCs getting shot multiple times, like. But
it's just so fun.
Yeah,
it's fun to watch. It's like, it's fun on the surface of it, but then it's just also so well done. Like there's a shitty version of that scene that you're like, this is, as you say, completely gratuitous, unnecessary,
and quick edits as well. Which is when you come forward to like that first 10 years of the 2000s, in terms of, there was a lot like action scenes where you can't see anything that's going on. And the only times you could is when they copy bullet time. It's not just bullet time that makes that scene work. It's like the elements.
Yeah, they only use it a couple of times in each scene.
I think that's also one of the other famous shots, isn't it? When they're on the roof and when he leans backwards.
That is.
And I tried that as a kid so many times.
Yeah, that is one of the most iconic shots for sure.
It's funny when you see the making of how fast it is at the time, but then it's just like the detail of that is amazing, and then the bend back feels like.
So just on a technical level, the idea is that if it's let's say they're doing 24
thing,
so the idea there is that if it's a 2-second shot going around him, right, that they have 48 cameras that are filming it, and so it's just taking one frame from each one, right?
It's wild, isn't it, when you see the cameras going off at the time, how quick it's
For those of you listening to the podcast, in the video format, we'll show some behind the scenes videos, so make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. But I remember as a kid watching the behind the scenes, and that's the main thing I remember, is seeing how it looks, because those cameras are fucking expensive.
Because also I think it's one of the big influences. There's obviously like anime in terms of the action sequences, and it's one of the only films, because I feel like I think I've said to you before, so even all the Spider-Man films, for instance, like even the ones that I love, there's an element of when they cut to Spider-Man like flying, I'm like, this is not a human being. This is like a digital.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
There's just something about it that doesn't feel organic. Whereas, but then when they do Spider-Man animated, you remove that element from it, and you can do anything and be as creative as you want. This is one of the only films that feels like an animation come to life almost. Yes. Like you're seeing stuff that is normally looks like fake, but it's obviously fake, but it feels real.
I think the key is that there needs to be enough realness there. Like, for example, all of the bullet time shots, they're done on green screen, but then they've obviously superimposed it, like the Trinity one at the beginning, onto a very real, gritty looking backdrop. So it feels real. I think that's the problem, is that sometimes it becomes, like a lot of Marvel, it is just a couple of real people that have been inserted into basically a video game shot, whereas it needs to be the other way around. It needs to be 80% real and 20%.
Black Panther is like, it feels, the Black Panther is one of the best like MCU films, but the fight, the fist fight, where it's quite clearly they're not even them in the suits at that point. The whole thing's digital. It doesn't feel. You don't feel the blows. You don't feel.
No.
Also, I think it's key that the bullet slices past his leg as well. So then you're like, we could like it can't hit
not
him.
fast enough.
Her coming up in the helicopter is cool as well.
And then
I mean, it's just cool.
I mean, every
and it cuts below it as well, because that's another. You're seeing they're putting shots in that you wouldn't normally see in that action film. And the bullets, that's one of my favorite shots. The bullets hitting it feels like it's hitting the camera. And then the subway scene is just like, feels like.
But that one again is just so gritty, because it's just dirty, and there's the newspaper and the dust.
And then he blocks the fist, but then he pushes his like.
God. And then I think that's fight sort of kills him. I think he kills him with the train, and then he's able to escape. And then he escapes to. They have the city chase, which actually goes on longer than I remembered. You know, it's a classic city chase of like going through flats and everything. But I think the idea there is that they use the fact that basically we've been introduced to this power the agents have, and now it's like, let's put that on steroids. They just keep appearing everywhere. I remember as a kid even being confused. Like, I understood most things, but then it's like, I think they do a bit where there's like a shot of a woman, like an old lady behind them, a kitchen counter, and then it cuts to Neo, and then the knife has been thrown, and it goes back and is the agent. But then they end up in the corridor, they shoot him, he dies. Trinity tells him she loves him, and then also, obviously the Sentinels are coming in.
That's also point. That's like a classic thriller concept, isn't it? Where you're seeing two different points of view at the same time. So you've got the element that he's dying, they're coming at the same time. So in the Matrix, he's been shot, but in the real world, they're like about to be attacked.
This is the time to talk about this. The whole like, I love you, as hence you're the one. It's a bit corny. Isn't it?
But it feels like a reverse fairy tale scene, so it's normally the man. It's like the kiss that will save him. But also, I feel like there's an element of with Neo where, because I think I can't remember the sequel exactly, but I think it's again mentioned in the chat with the architect, where what makes Neo different is he loves Trinity. The other ones loved humanity, and there's something in that, and I think that's like, it's like the reflection in what she's supposed to be the one as well. It's like
I think they definitely make her more like they are the ones in the later ones,
especially in the fourth one. The fourth one's basically a love story.
She's kind of the main character in that. So that happens, and then it's pretty much the end, except for the whole, I call it the Superman scene. Again, it's so badass.
And then literally the Rage Against Machine song's called Wake Up. Again, it's the music, the score, and the soundtrack is all perfectly timed with the actions on the screen. It's not that, it's just like, again, so many films just drop in a pop song. And they're dropping a pop song while they're like showing like the vistas of Chicago or something. Nothing's happening. Whereas this is like phones down, and then the chord hits straight away.
It's great.
And then because some calls Wake Up as well, which is also which is cool in the fourth one, where, because the fourth is obviously reflective of why do we keep remaking stuff. They do a similar thing in the fourth one, but it's a cover of Wake Up as well by a different band. But and then you just like, it doesn't feel like 2 hours have gone by.
No, I was when I was rewatching it, and I knew I had a limited time. I was like, wait, really? It's 2 hours 10 the credits? It doesn't feel like it feels like an hour, a tight hour and a half. One thing before we move on that I realized that we hadn't touched upon, the name, when you were talking about the source, the name, The Matrix. It's such a cool title. I mean, obviously it's just because like the word itself, you could analyze it, but it's just such a strong word. It's a word that means something in real life that has nothing to do with this. But
apparently there's also an old episode of Doctor Who about a fake world called The Matrix as well. But I'd imagine that it's the Neuromancer is a direct influence just because of the Zion element to it as well. It's a very specific name, and it's about a hacker as well.
You're definitely right on that.
But it like evokes something, doesn't it? And the font as well.
Yeah, the font. I mean, the font and just all of the green stuff is very cool.
What's weird as well, though, is the cover of this is essentially it's just people.
Yeah,
but with like the digital rain around them. And when they try to replicate it with the sequels, it just looks so cheesy. Like we'll do it again. This time they're in a tunnel, and it just doesn't. It's not the same, is it at all?
Well, I think it's just because of this cover. Obviously, it's got the title, it's got the code in the background, it's got the characters, the fashion, the guns, because obviously he's wearing the outfit he does when he does the jacket. So I would be curious if someone who'd never seen it, if they showed them that. Like, I think nowadays it would seem super cheesy, but I feel like back then it was quite unique, and it just evokes. Most posters evoke one or two things, whereas this probably evokes like probably a dozen.
So I'd be interested because I went into it like fresh, but like I said, there was a lot of stuff that I liked in the 90s that this, like even something like Power Rangers, like kung fu films from my grandma and stuff, and like I'd watch like some anime. I've not like as much as I've watched like now. When I watched it, I was just like, this is like, it felt as a piece. But I wonder if like someone who's older would go in, look at that poster and go, I'm going to watch an action film. And then just be like, what?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say with most movies that you have a very unique art, like, you're much more aware of all the influences when you go into a movie, whereas most people just go in and like, oh, there are guns in it.
I mean, because I was lucky on that from just because of my nan being so into like cinema and showing me so many different types of it. But by this point, I'd watched Blade Runner and I'd seen the Terminator films and obviously some anime and stuff. So, but it still felt like mind blown at the time, the emergence of like every sort of element. But I wonder if what people thought of if they were just thinking they're going to see an action film.
Well, most people thought, this is all completely new. But I think Tarantino always says this: there's nothing new. He's inspired by pretty much everything. A lot of as you say, the kung fu movies. He's influenced by all sorts of foreign movies. Let's say he said one of his influences, which is some Korean filmmaker, that person would say, I was inspired by these. If they were at the beginning of cinema, they'll say, I was inspired by these paintings and these novels.
It's like so many people that will be like Star Wars as like an original idea. It was like Star Wars was influenced by
John Carter.
And then also Kurosawa from like it's the same beats the whole time. It's about being able to. I think this is why this film works so well. It's taking influences and making
which all great, like you're saying, the Star Wars, Tarantino movies. I mean, it's impossible to not be. These people who make all these movies are so artistic. It's impossible. They wouldn't be artistic if they weren't influenced, and then because they're artistic, they're obviously going to express their influences.
But it's trying to not be derivative. And I don't feel like this is.
I don't think there are any overt references to stuff in this. It's inspired by it, but no, they're never wink like, we're referencing this particular.
Whereas like modern cinema, especially recently, modern like blockbuster cinema is very like on the nose, isn't it? Like
the Deadpool effect.
Where it feels like everyone's Deadpool to an element. Whereas this still feels like super fresh, I think. And also watching it this time and I was probably the first time I watched it in years where I've like sat down with silence specifically to what I've had it on in the background quite a lot. I remember as a kid as well, I would replay certain scenes a lot or just have it on the VHS or the DVD and then just loop it back to the beginning and just have it on in the background where, especially watching it now, you can see so much is going on in it.
All right, let's talk characters. So I asked you to rank them kind of from worst to best. Mm-hmm. Who do you kind of put at the bottom of that totem pole? If there's someone you think is a bad actor, start with them.
Dozer would be right at the bottom.
Okay, is that because of the actor or the character?
He just feels like almost like set dressing at one point.
Yeah, he doesn't really. I think he probably only has like 5 or 6 lines.
No, it almost feels like there to be like all the muscle.
Yeah,
but it's very weird because they're very specific about those two are brothers, but Tank has a lot more characterization to him.
Yeah.
Than Dozer does.
I do think that part of it is the acting. So Dozer's obviously killed, which there's no way he can be, and then none of the others, like everyone else is killed, but the only one who could theoretically, apart from the main cast, be in a sequel was Tank, but he was not. And so they imply, I think one of the other characters later turns out to be a cousin or something, and they say, I lost my 2 cousins or brothers or something. Yeah. And so the implication is that he could have died because his injuries are pretty bad, but he definitely could have survived them if they wanted it to. So obviously there's 2 sides to every story, but it seems like basically they offered him $250K to do both sequels, which is a nice chunk of change. But you could argue for the biggest franchise in the world, you could want more. He wanted a couple of million, but they basically said no, which is their right. And then he just went completely crazy. He accused them of like doing all sorts of dodgy things with his contract on the first one. It does seem like there might have been, because he basically kept saying that it wasn't following American law because it wasn't part of
right, yeah, because it's in Australia.
yeah, which that's why they did it in Australia, to do it cheaper. So it does, and they have obviously a lot of Australian, New Zealand actors in it, but they cast him in it, and he made this super weird documentary, 45 minutes, which is narrated by him and literally with the most basic fonts, and there's like video and there's pictures with like the super cheesy zoom stuff, and he basically shows his career. But the way he talks about himself, he talks about some role before that no one's heard of, and he says, oh, I just missed on an Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
Then he said, oh, I gave the performance of a lifetime in The Matrix. And you think, okay, maybe it's just the tone, but then there's like footage of him on the phone with people like screaming at them and threatening them.
Right.
And it, to give him the benefit of the doubt, it does seem like maybe he wasn't treated in the best way, but then he basically completely sabotaged his career, and no one would touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Understandably, because if you piss him off, it looks like he would then come with a vengeance. He ends the documentary with this absolutely disgusting montage of headlines about the Wachowskis and their divorces and their transitions, and about Keanu Reeves, and the whole Keanu Reeves' life is tragic because obviously it was, and then like him laughing about it and stuff. So yeah, he's had a few appearing on TV shows, but he hasn't done anything major since. But he was a very dramatic actor, potentially with a promising career. And all of this is to say that I think maybe he was given a bit more to work with than Dozer was. And then he does light up the room more than Dozer does. But yeah, it's just because it's crazy sometimes just do a deep dive on some like random character like that and be like, whoa, he
does have a lot of energy about him, doesn't he?
Yeah, which again, like I said before, you're never quite sure if that's is it good, is it charisma, I think it's he's definitely got charisma, and he's a good looking guy, and he's like the muscles and everything, and he's different from everyone else.
It feels like he's like a fan as well of like the whole setup as well, and because he's never gone into
his energy makes sense.
He lands on it like gamers.
Yeah, he's like, let's do this. And he is. Despite sometimes when I see that, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna hate the character because of that. But I think now, having seen that and rewatched it, I do still like the character. APOC and Switch, and there's no rational reason for it. When I was a kid, I just thought he was really cool. I just think he just had that sort of dark, cool dude, like with the whole bun thing, because he's a New Zealand actor. I think part Samoan.
You like those
something.
People when they go,
and he looks
what's your favorite Star Wars character, and it'll be like this guy in a bar.
That's like 1 second. I think he was not given much to go with, but every time he spoke or whatever, or was like on screen, I thought he was like quite cool. Whether it's when they're first putting him into the Matrix, I think maybe actually one of the big things is out of all of the outfits they have when they go see the Oracle, as a kid I really liked his outfit and his sun. I think everyone can pick what their favorite sunglasses were because they're all so different. I will talk about that more in the costumes. And then yes, Switch is an interesting character.
I think it would have if they stuck with what I mentioned earlier. I think that could have been like they wouldn't have even need to comment on it really, but that would have been like a cool addition to the character.
The whole gender thing.
Yeah. I think that's good. And
because in the new one, someone has that, right, with their different genders in it.
And I think just they look cool as well, just because they stand out more from the rest, just because of the white and the white blonde hair and everything looks really cool.
Let's talk
the
about him.
So he's like the second best character in the whole film.
Okay, I hadn't thought too strongly of him one way or the other, but okay, but develop on that then.
I think it just feels more like that his character feels more like a comment on like society as a whole, where he knows the truth. But he'd much rather like live the lie. He'd much rather like bury his head in the sand.
Which is probably the more realistic view, because he's the only person who does that out of whatever a dozen people. But it's the most realistic. I think one thing I'm realizing here, one of my notes I had is that Morpheus and Trinity especially, and the others apart from Mouse to a certain extent, they have this sort of demure, for lack of a better word. They're soft spoken, they're minimalistic, like usually quite grumpy looking or very serious and stuff. And one of the funny things I realized is that that's very much Keanu Reeves' persona now. And it's actually quite a shock that my first of the two rewatches being like, most of the movie, he's just a normal guy. Like when he's Mr. Anderson, he's playing it very straight. And Trinity is very much, basically Trinity and Morpheus are very much how Keanu Reeves is now. So kind of, and then in the next two movies, Keanu Reeves is like the ultimate, just quiet and super serious and everything. It almost says the Matrix broke him, and it just made him like, now I'm gonna be like the word. I don't know what the exact word, but just a bit quirky. Whereas there's nothing quirky about Keanu Reeves in the first Matrix.
He almost feels like his character from Bill and Ted had to grow up and get a job, and he's just like, his whole body language is he's just like, he feels like someone that's been forced to cut their hair and like wear a tie.
But you very much someone like Luke in Star Wars, when he's a bit because he's excited to go and become so it's different. But I'm trying to think of a character that's a bit more reluctant, but you can kind of, and this is acting and character, but you can kind of feel they're not actually that reluctant, they're excited, whereas you genuinely feel he's obviously got some excitement because he's looking for Morpheus, he wants to understand the Matrix, but then he's like, whoa, this is crazy.
Because that's also one of the lines that still holds up, is the "whoa" line. Because that almost does feel like a callback to Bill and Ted as well. To an extent.
It's when Morpheus does the jump. But my point there was going to be about Cypher is that actually he's very much playing it straight as well. He's just a dude who's been taken out of the Matrix. We obviously don't know about. I'm sure there's actually that could be an interesting spin-off about or prequel about what happened to him. Like, what's the story about? Why did they pick him? Why did they bring him out? Maybe he liked it at first. You think he's the second best character?
Yeah. It's one of those where he's like gone so quickly as well, whereas he could have been more of a villain. But he's obviously is a villain.
But he's it's like him and Agent Smith are both semi-villains for 2/3. Because you don't see Agent Smith that much, and then Agent Smith takes over. He's like the boss. He's like the boss level.
But yeah, I just think it's like interesting that because that obviously does happen a lot of times. Like, people know, or even people don't want to know the truth. They're just happy to pretend that everything's absolutely fine.
Ignorance is bliss. It's got to be one of the best lines of the whole movie.
Because I think Morpheus is actually out of like the main lot, probably the weakest in terms of characterization, because he's almost like. So what's weird?
We know nothing about him,
and they sort of set him up as like the leader, but he feels naturally more of a follower. Like, he's almost like...
he's a follower of the Oracle. He's kind of a mini leader. He's like he's a mid-level manager.
He's quite happy to go along with, do you know what I mean? It's like someone that has like a religious belief.
Yes, I was literally going to say that. Yeah, he's like he's someone who's leading a church. They might be leading the church, but they're actually following God. Which is literally what he's doing.
Yeah, and there's like no... He's like a narrator.
Yes.
Almost.
Because he explains a lot.
Yeah. It feels like a narrator sort of thing. And then Trinity is really great in terms of like the posturing. And she feels very much like she feels the one that's almost has more at stake because of what she's been told. There's probably an element that she's maybe wasted a little bit, but I also just think that's
I think if she wasn't in that first scene, she would really feel like she'd become part of the furniture. And
I think it's she's almost like the emotional element of the film, though, which is so strange because she's so stoic for most of it, but she's like, she's almost like the hero of the whole film, and then obviously as it goes on into the fourth one, is more and more important. But...
I think the scene with the right before the guns, lots of guns, where he tries to go in by himself, and then she's like, "Yeah, you're not," and he tries to tell her off, and she like tells him off. I think that scene is critical because if you don't have that, it's like she really needs to assert herself there. Like, no, she basically is saying, "I'm a part of this movie as well, and I'm important, and I'm going, and we're gonna do this together."
And she's just like she's very like striking. Like in terms of her looks and like just like obviously so many shots involve her like mid-action, or there's that shot where she's got the gun to the agent's head and it's shot like down this way. She's like as equal, which is something that you probably don't get in as much like films that influence this follower. But I think she's like really key.
So the obvious question then is, who's the most important character? Is it Neo or is it Agent Smith?
Neo in this is more important than... I think he's better in this than he is in the sequel.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But he's got more... I think he's got more range. He's got more interesting things to do, because people say one of the problems, and even the makers say the problem with the sequel is that you now got this being with all this power, and how do you make an interesting movie around someone who can do anything?
That's where the sort of direct ties to like Superman are. Because
we need kryptonite.
I guess it's the same in like some other like comic book characters. If they're that powerful, where's the threat?
Yeah,
exactly. And then the sequels really...
Yeah, that's why you need Agent Smith to become this next level threat. Because...
But then that almost ruins Agent Smith, like when they go to...
Agent Smith he's a cartoon. Okay,
yeah,
so we might as well do them both in tandem. Agent Smith is a cartoon in the following ones, whereas here, he goes from literally being a cardboard cutout, like the agents are just copies to each other, to that whole scene with Morpheus. I think up until then he could have been, obviously Hugo Weaving is great, but any good actor could have done that. But the scene with Morpheus, the mammal's speech, and then I need the codes and stuff, that's something. I also
like the first interrogation with Neo as well.
Yeah, that's good.
Every word, he's hitting every like word, he's pronouncing it like, whereas all the other agents are a bit more like just anyone. I mean, you don't even like, they just look so bland, don't they? You wouldn't be able to point them out in the lineup. Whereas he's.
I love when Morpheus says, "You all look the same to me."
Whereas he's like fantastic.
Yeah.
Again, it's a weird thing. Like I know that they mention it in the big documentary on the disc. Like it just really doesn't seem to me like they had planned a trilogy from the get-go.
Did they claim
mention
that they
it in that as well?
I mean, I can imagine that, especially because you spend years and years making this, that you must naturally have ideas. Like if anyone ever tells you, "Oh, I never intended to make a trilogy and they forced me to do it," it's like, no, you must have had ideas. But I think it's like with a musician. You always hear this with very successful musicians. They basically spend their whole life planning, like preparing their first album with stories and songs, and then they're told, "Great, you've got 18 months to come up with the next one or less." And I think that's probably what happened here, is that they were like, "Okay, we need to pump out 2 sequels quickly," because they made them extremely quickly. I mean, I think if they'd given them 5 years between, they probably would have made more money and made better movies. But obviously, studios want to.
No, I do think that's why the fourth one is so much better. It's the length of time, and it's also the Neo's got his characterization back again. He's like a normal.
Because he hasn't got the godlike thing. My personal opinion is the first one is leaps and bounds above all 3 others. I would then put the fourth, and then the other 2 are just kind of merged together.
So in terms of like quotes, I really love the Morpheus quote where he references Alice in Wonderland when he's like, "There's no going back from this point."
Yeah, the red pill.
Because that really adds to the mystery.
Yeah, this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends, you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. It's a great summary. And obviously, a lot of these quotes are very well coupled with some of the best shots, and obviously that one is the one with the sunglasses. I also like so I think it must be the same conversation, the "you are a slave, Neo, like everyone else, you're born into bondage, into a prison that you cannot taste or see or touch, a prison for your mind." He basically he eases him in. So he starts with stuff like "you are a slave," like this theoretical thing, and then
it's weird though, isn't it? Because all that his sort of like dialogue is very reminiscent of like these like online idiots that we get today, that they lure these people in by saying some like, "Oh yeah,
he's a great cult leader."
Because a lot of it's very like base level philosophy, but the way that you say the words and your demeanor probably gives much more like importance to it, and that's like it's almost again ahead of its time in terms of like what we are like now.
Well, it's the sort of thing that at the time it was like very cool and smooth, but now if you had heard someone talk like that, you wouldn't believe a word they said, because they're obviously using that. We talked about the lightheartedness of Cypher. I really like in when the whole leaving. So you've had all the Morpheus serious stuff. You've got all Apoc and Switch doing technical stuff, and then he says, "What's going on?" And he says, "It means buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye." That's like, if you want to understand his vibe in the movie, it's like, it's that line.
I also like this is gonna suck. His quote regarding the steak, when he's basically he's basically saying everything, that like, "I know that the steak's not real." But I can taste it, and that's is another example of like, at the time you're watching that and go, "Oh, that food looks nice," because he's like selling it. He's selling it to you and selling it to himself.
I mean, he's got a point. Like, what is the difference between reality? Like, perception is reality. If you're perceiving something to be a certain way, and it's gonna be, and if you're in the Matrix, you're never. The key is the awareness. I mean. Okay, I wasn't even building to that, but obviously I think it actually is my favorite line of the whole film is, and again, it's just coupled with the perfect shot. It's well written, it's well delivered. It's the ignorance is bliss, just as he's eating a steak, and then it cuts to a shot of the restaurant and the harp playing, and it's just this, this paradise. And yeah, I mean, we're pretty aware people of the things that go on, and there's a lot of things in the world that but I have those moments, especially with the news these days, where I'm like, no, ignorance is, and obviously you don't want actual ignorance, but I think the kind of middle ground is that not thinking about horrible things all the time is actually quite soothing, and the implication of ignorance is bliss is that, it's really hard to be aware of the reality of life all the time.
I think that's where the whole irony of regarding the red pill, the blue pill thing, and how it's been co-opted and stuff is just like.
Do you want to say a couple words on that, just for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, I can't remember what's the group. What do they call themselves? The Men's Right.
Oh, you mean the
MRA? Is that what they call themselves?
I don't know. I very much know that Andrew Tate uses it.
Yeah,
the blue pill and the Matrix in general.
They basically
the incels must talk about
they basically imply that men are slaves to women, and if you're red pilled, will mean that you can see the truth and you can see how life should be, and obviously red pill just gets brought up a lot, don't it, around elections and conspiracy theorists and everything like that, and it's just it's what, especially the men's right activist element of it, the fact that the filmmakers have actually come out and been it's actually, the whole thing's like a trans allegory as well.
But it reminds me a lot with Fight Club about how people use Fight Club as a reference, and then the people who made it and wrote it says you're literally representing the complete opposite thing. This was meant to be a parody of certain things. But
you still get it now, don't you? Obviously, even with modern stuff that's nowhere near as good, but stuff like Joker, people co-opt that, and they're
no, it was making fun of you idiots.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just art in general. I mean, people will take, it could be a picture or a painting or a book or whatever, and say this is a statement on this or that, even though it was not at all what the author meant. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of inevitable when something is so big and so mainstream and so popular that someone is going to take it and co-opt it, as you said.
Oh yeah, the Agent Smith thing when he was. Let me read it. It came to me when I tried to classify your species, and I realised that you're not actually mammals. You humans are a disease, a cancer of the planet. You're a plague, and we are the cure.
Yeah, I found that one,
which I think is quite interesting in terms of, again, society. Maybe we are.
I was going to say this about Cypher. If he didn't kill everyone, you would totally understand that he wants to go back to the Matrix. But obviously, he does say he's a bad guy. If Agent Smith wasn't kidnapping Morpheus and torturing him, you would totally agree. I mean, especially with global warming. That speech, you're you're making a lot of sense here. And then he says, the future is our world, Morpheus. The future is our time. Then a couple of the cheesy ones we've talked about is the dodge this, and the guns, lots of guns, and then the whoa.
What's it the exact way he goes, I know Kung Fu?
Yeah, and then there was also the stop trying to hit me and hit me. There's a lot of the fighting ones which are really good. Oh yeah, well this is in fact more than a line. Apparently in the first 45 minutes, Neo has 80 lines, 44 of which are questions, averaging roughly one question per minute. So I mean, it's funny because you don't actually feel it, but it's just that's the type of movie it is that it requires.
It's also why Keanu Reeves is perfect casting for that role as well, because the way that he says stuff always sounds like he's asking a question anyway. So if they literally needed someone to ask questions all the way through.
But you would there's so much happening and it's so confusing. And obviously he's someone who's somewhat initiated to the idea. It's not like they took someone off the street and tried to tell him about the Matrix, but he's still so bewildered. Oh yeah, I also what are you trying to tell me, that I can dodge bullets? No, Neo. That's a perfect question by him. Very Neo. And then no, Neo, I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to, which is very Morpheus. I also just for kind of from a, again, this is an everyday thing more than, but I told you I can only show you the door, you have to walk through it. It's a big thing about life. A lot of life lessons in the Matrix.
And obviously there is no spoon line. That's something that kept getting parodied a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that one, sometimes there's a line that's just a line. I think that one kind of got a bit blown out of proportion. Another one, big one that, you think of every time you, so when we did Catch Me If You Can, anytime the word concur comes up, you're going to think of that movie. Anytime someone mentions deja vu, you're going to think of the Matrix. I was 9 at the time. I'd never heard the word before. And here's the thing. Usually deja vu is not 1 second and another. It's oh, I feel this has happened before, but it might have been months or years before.
It used to happen to me a lot.
Really? After you watched The Matrix?
No, even before. I remember having a very weird feeling. I'd wake up and I'd almost remember a dream about something very normal, and then whenever and it happened, I'd be hang on, this is like...
It's almost like you knew the deja vu was going to happen before it happened.
Yeah, almost like the conversation.
Danny, are you the one?
But I remember it was just like the conversation. It'd be like almost like conversations, and I'd be like, the feeling of I've had this conversation before. It's like it's a very odd like sensation when it happens.
I've had it a couple of times recently. It's not so much conversations as 3 or 4 circumstances. Like, oh, I'm in a place where I'm carrying a bag and I'm having a conversation and it's like raining or something. I'm like, whoa, with these 4 things together, it feels like this has happened. We're not going to do the list of most iconic cats in movies, but I do think it gets, and very short screen time, but that's got to be one of the go-to cats. I also really like the look into his eyes, those big, pretty eyes, and tell me, do you believe me? Again, like perfectly Joey Pants line delivery.
He is just like, he's such like a great actor, and it's almost like, because he feels like he could be anyone that you meet. Like he could be like someone that's like a family like party that you bump into that's like a second, like a not long lost uncle, but like a second cousin, or like a mechanic that you both have a quick conversation with.
He could be someone really nice. He could be the worst person you've ever met. Yeah, he's a great actor. It's one of those. He's been in a good amount of stuff, but doesn't. I mean, this is probably the thing he's most famous for.
Yeah.
By far.
I would definitely watch Bound because he's like,
I'll check that out.
Like the third lead in that. He's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Let's do a little bit on brands. So this bit is going to be brought to us by Concave Brand Tracking. So this one, we actually done a full analysis of all the brands in the entire Matrix trilogy. So there's a full video of that. We'll put a link in the description. But what brands jump out to you as being in this one? Yeah, so Nokia's the big one.
Yeah.
But Nokia is actually only the second most prominent brand.
Right.
Can you guess what the first one is?
But it would be a type of sunglasses.
Yeah. So all the sunglasses are a weird story. I did a deep dive on it when I made the video about all the brands, and Blind was one of the top. So the company is Blind, and they basically custom made them all.
Right.
Like they were very much molded to their faces and stuff. So they're pretty much all custom. But then they were involved and they did it. But they kind of just did it as not as a favor. They definitely didn't pay for it. It was like most product placement. It was a collaboration. They were like, we don't want to just buy them off the shelf. We want Morpheus needs this. Neo needs that. They need to be. So they did all that. But then they didn't make good use of it. They didn't sell a lot of the what they should have just done is then produce 10 million of each thing, and they would have done great.
Yeah, because it's with the sunglasses is like such an iconic element.
Yeah, but just to finish the story, the company didn't make much money off it, and they don't exist anymore. They were around for a while, and then they basically just obviously not because of that, but they could have saved the company on the back of that. They could literally have just been the Matrix company, sunglasses company forever. But yeah, so they were the number 1 brand in the Matrix. Then there was Nokia. Any other brands?
So everything feels so innocuous.
It does, but again, that's the thing about brands, that people think of the overt product placement, but this is still a movie that takes place in the world. So the cars, the
computers, would the computer monitors be in?
So the computer monitors, and in Neo's, he has everything Panasonic. He has Panasonic headphones, Panasonic alarm clock, Panasonic monitors. I think maybe the ones at work are as well, but the cars are the big one. The agents drive a Ford Crown Victoria, which is that's part of the whole texture of the movie is like the old cars, and then they drink Lincoln Continental, which is like a super cool. The cars are actually quite similar of the era, but there's different brands. And then the fifth Panasonic was 4th, and the 5th was Bell helicopters because of the helicopter scene. But yeah, big, not in terms of quantity, but the brands are quite significant. Obviously, the most memorable one, well, the sunglasses are memorable. People don't think about that as the brand, but the Nokia thing. One fun fact, I don't know if you knew that, is that phone doesn't actually do the auto slide thing. That was a thing they had to custom build it for the effect. And I think a lot of people bought it and they're like, wait, it's not doing it. The music, we talked about that music. I don't think we need to say too much more, but you said you bought the record. So do you want to say a few words on that?
It just felt really like of the time, but like futuristic. I think the element like
futuristic of the time, really.
Yeah, and it's also something that gets brought up still by a lot of like bands now. Will literally say it's the Matrix. We wanted so like Bring Me the Horizon's last record said they wanted to mix emo with the Matrix soundtrack.
Wow.
So and to make emo futuristic, they're like, oh, we'll use elements from the Matrix, like the sounds and all the electronic element to it, and it's obviously very iconic. Like it's weirdly the Matrix gets brought up in a lot of like band interviews. And
you do watch a lot of band interviews.
yeah, and it's just like in terms of even just like bands who have like like certain aesthetics will bring it up and be like in terms of films or like just the overall vibe, because it just feels futuristic. Even now, it's very like, it doesn't feel like they've just dropped these songs in. The songs feel curated.
I feel like it doesn't feel futuristic anymore. It feels almost like a split timeline. It feels like what the future was meant to be in the 90s and now we're not there. A bit like, when you see old movies doing the future, which is a great feel, because I mean, it would be weird if they're like, oh no, the music from the 1999 movie actually feels current now. But yeah, it's very unique, which I think is the most important thing with any soundtrack / the music they choose, is just have a unique sound.
Like even the songs that, I mean, the songs that are like you can get on like artist records and stuff I associate with the Matrix, but the score it's almost like you relate to the from Inception. Like it's got that vibe to it. Whatever note they're hitting, it's like, oh, that sounds like the Matrix.
Yeah, it's got a very particular sound, and the fact that the sounds and the music blend together is such an important thing. Special effects, I feel like we've covered it quite well on the bullet time. The fact that they haven't done too much, but they've done enough. Like revolutionary. I think there is some of it's a bit cheesy. Stuff like when he jumps into Agent Smith, it seems a bit cheap, but we'll forgive them. It was over 20 years ago.
I think it's also, this is where it feels like films don't do this route now, where they've tried to do as much as they can physically, and then they've like added in the effects after the fact. Whereas a lot of it now, it's weird when you see behind the scenes sets now, the whole thing isn't real.
Like the Disney Marvel thing is just a bunch. Or I remember with Star Wars, the prequel trilogy. I think that was it. Where I think even they actually tried to make it more practical, the third trilogy, because it was so criticized the first one that it was, the actors would just say, you just turn up and you do a scene by yourself on a green screen. But
I mean, I think it utilizes it as like the stuff that looks like a bit dated in terms of, when they go super fast. How else are you going to show that without, do you know what I mean, without doing bullet time over and over and over again?
I think, and the bullet time, they use it, it's good that they used it more than once, but I don't think they overuse it. No. Costumes we've talked about, iconic. It's a very particular look, which again, no one can do anything close to it without seeming like they're ripping them off, but it was just a very unique style.
The costumes is like an interesting side note that got brought into controversy because of the Columbine shootings happened a month after this film came out. They're dressed like them,
have they been linked, or was it a coincidence?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, around that time, so much stuff was like just thrown out of like they're influenced by this sort of thing. But it looked like they look super cool. But it almost like you do think of like the long black coat as being someone that's going to like shoot.
I mean, they do literally do that in the movies. That makes sense.
I mean, they even do they wouldn't have thought of it at this point, the metal detector thing.
Oh, that's actually pretty dark.
It feels dark looking back on it now, don't it?
Now, the best part of the production, the cinematography, we're going to do that in our top 10 shots. So I got like 30 when I was going through it. You've got your 10 ranked?
There's like top 2 and then like a list of like what I think.
Okay, how about, so I'm going to do my top 10 first, and you can basically say say whether you agree or whatever. So my top 10 shots, and again, if you're listening to this on the podcast, the audio platforms, when you watch our videos, we'll be showing all of these in clips. So I think fitting to start the top 10 is the Trinity slow-mo jump, because it's one of the opening ones. Also, an honorable mention ones, I really like the studio, the Warner Brother and the Village Road one. The fact that they do it in green, like when you start rewatching it, oh god, it's happening.
Well, also the back at the beginning, the digital rain screen. I mean, I guess it is like it is a screenshot technically. Isn't it?
I had that like screensaver in there.
It feels like magical.
Yeah,
along with the music, and also the Trinity scene. Prior to that, I love the bit where she's got her hands behind her head, and you can see she's in focus and the light behind her.
I mean, again, this is very difficult because every there's like probably 7 technically shots in the Trinity scene, but you've got to take the bullet time one of her jumping that we've talked about before. Super iconic. Then some of these, there's more than one, and I had to pick one. So for number 9, I have the Field of Humans. Specifically the second one where they actually show them harvesting it, because I also had the one where Neo wakes up and you see the towers.
That was one of mine,
but I think the fact they show them actually harvesting it later on is quite
I also think the pink against the like super dark green works. It looks really effective as well.
Yeah. Then at number 8, I've got the agents in code at the end. I think it's cheesy, but it's great. It's awesome. You have to include it. The battery shot where he pulls up the Duracell battery, I think is great. I love the fact how simple it is when you contrast it to the Field of Humans, because the Field of Humans they're showing you exactly what's happening. Whereas he says the humans have been reduced to this. It's like very basic with a white background, but we understand it. I also really like that they use a real battery because I do feel everyone knows that's a Duracell battery. And if it had been like a Tesco's value battery, it wouldn't have had the same impact. Then the final Superman, the ending. So as you said, the music is great. It's a great shot. I also love the smash cuts, the written and directed by the Wachowskis. I think that's probably one of the best like end card.
I also like it right before that when he leaves the phone booth and he's like, it almost feels like everyone's out of focus and he's the main thing,
because obviously he is the one before that, but it's like he was just discovering it and now he's like, no,
also
I am the
side note as well, even as a kid, I don't remember thinking I need more of these.
Yeah, I don't think.
I mean, there obviously was sequels, but I don't think I was like, oh, no. It felt like the story.
It was a very well contained, and it left you open to, because the thing is, as we said, the universe is so immense. There's a million different sequels you could have made, and they took one of 1,000 paths. So I don't feel as though they've contained it all. Like there's still loads of ways it could have gone, and because of the whole cyclicity of it, it's like the sequels don't even mean that much because they rebooted it and we don't know what happened, which is kind of what they were with the fourth one. They were like, we can basically forget about 2 and 3. Then the dodge of this, which is both the shot of her when he realized it, and then him being shot and in slow mo. The phone, both the coming out of the FedEx. One of the things I really like about that is I remember at the time, I was 9, I wasn't getting FedExes, and you know how they
the sound
they pull with they pull it off. The thing is, Amazon packages are like that now. So every time I get an Amazon package,
also, they're not as smooth sometimes.
Just the end. But when it works well, you think, oh, it's a Nokia phone about to drop out. And then also, and it's probably my favorite of the two, when he's on top of the building and he drops the phone, and it does it
slows down a bit. And
that's so cool. Then and this is probably when I was a kid, one of my favorite scenes that I used to rewatch with my friend was when they go through the metal detector and the holy shit, and the kick, and obviously then that whole scene is amazing. But it is just and again, as a kid, if you think about it, he didn't need all those guns. He could have just had a bunch of cartridges. But as a kid, you just want more and more of everything. So the idea that someone's just come with like 25 guns is just like, Then the next one has got to be the Morpheus pill one, the sunglasses, which you talked about. I'm going to do a 1 and a 1.1 because basically this is my top 11. I think I'm going to stick to my number 1. But I'll basically move everything down. At number 2, I have the lean back bullet time, which I'd forgotten, but obviously it's got to be mentioned. And then my number 1 has got to be the guns. Lots of guns. And then the shot, that to me as a kid, it was just always like the peak of the movie because it's so simple. It was probably the easiest effect they ever had to do. It's like, okay, just photograph these racks, multiply them by infinity. But it was, again, as a kid, you're just like, I want all the guns. So for me, that's the top shot.
I think mine would be the split mirror shot.
Okay.
Again, just because that just looks so.
What, you mean when he's about to come out of the Matrix, or?
Yeah, when he's like looks in the mirror the first time, it's all shattered, and you can see him split into a million pieces, but it's not exactly as his face would be replicated. Before it goes up. That just feels like really evocative. And then the second one would be the Morpheus. Seeing Neo in the glasses, with with a split, again, love that. But then there's also I love how they replicate that throughout, like the shots of surfaces reflecting what you're seeing constantly. Like there's like door handles. I think there's like a car door reflection. There's the spoon reflection. There's loads of these where they're just focused on it, and you can see perfectly what's happening in the reflection, but it's just still like distorted constantly. I love the underneath shot of the helicopter.
Oh yeah, I had that in my short list as well.
The subway scene with each other.
Yeah, and they jump and Oh, I forgot to mention earlier when they both end up with the guns at each other's head, and he says, "You're out, so are you." That little side eye that Hugo Weaving does is just so brilliant because he's like, yeah, I didn't think about that.
I love the bit in the hallway gunfight where he's spinning upside down, but you can see like the person's feet is here. You can see him in the background shooting, and there's all the bullets, the rain dropping around him.
Oh right, yeah.
And he's just like halfway. That's when they really like slow it down. The lean back is like super iconic.
Yeah, that one and the Trinity one have got to be the two most ripped off shots.
the restaurant scene with Cypher
Yes.
feels so different to the rest of the film as well.
Yeah, the cutting of the steak, and even him chewing on the steak and how he's enjoying it. Yeah. It's like it's a little oasis of happiness.
The wide shot of them when they're in the dojo about to do kung fu and they're facing each other the last time. But yeah, it's one of those things where it does feel like panels from a comic book.
Yeah.
Like every single shot does.
I think you could probably, if you did it, like if you took screenshots, I'm sure you could find 100 like iconic shots from this. But yeah, I think I came up with 30 or 40, narrowed it down to 10. Well, with that, we're going to get to our recap, where the culmination of this is we're going to both say where this movie stands in our all time, and then just kind of give a couple of reasons. So, Danny, would you like to go first?
So it's really hard because for a long time this was like my number one. I feel like there was a period when I was a kid where there was a few films that I would watch and I'd be like, that's my new favorite film, and I'd become obsessed with it. This is definitely one of them. It was almost like this and like Fight Club at the same time as each other, and obviously they're both have got enough like of their own controversy now. Now it'd probably be, I think it'd be hard to rank. I think it would definitely be like top 30, I think maybe. But I've not ranked the whole top 100, so it's really hard to say.
So if you had to assign it a rank, you would say...
We say like 25.
25. Okay. Where The Lighthouse was...
2.
Number 2, yeah, that's what I thought. So for me, this was what I said before. If you had asked me off the top of my head to rank it a year ago, I probably would have put it... I would have said top 30, top 50. But then now I've actually started making this list, and the way I do it is... I put a bunch of movies on it, and then I'll just take them from the bottom and be like, yeah, you're better than that, better than that, better than that, and move it up. And with this one, I was like, yeah, better. And then you hit like the all-time favorites. And yeah, it doesn't make the top 5 for me, but I realized, and I surprised myself, but this was before I studied it for this, but having studied it especially, for me now it's at number 9, which is the highest I've done so far. Casino that we did together was number 11 for me. So yeah, that's a big one. I'm actually a bit surprised that it's not higher for you because you seem so passionate about it. But I'm very curious over time. Over time to explore what your top 30 looks like.
Yeah, I think it's also like The Lighthouse is an example of something I've watched as an adult.
Yeah,
that has impacted me in that same way, where I was like obsessed with it.
How many? You've probably watched The Matrix more than The Lighthouse.
Yeah, I'd say like in terms of like top 5 films that I've watched the most, it would definitely be in the top.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that you consider it the best, because that's the thing. You can think a movie is better, but you'll still prefer watching another movie, because this is another thing. Despite all of the stuff we've talked about, you can watch this in a light way. Like you and I can put this on and do some maybe not work, but catch up on some correspondences or whatever. You can have it as a background movie, like, oh, I love this scene, which is a fun thing. I doubt you do that with The Lighthouse.
But Lighthouse is another one of those where it's like you've got to like hone in on it, otherwise you are just going to be like, I don't understand what's going on here. But yeah, I don't think you get many of those films up. And also I feel like that sort of 10-year period in the 90s as well, it's like such an advancement. That was like one of the films that had such an advancement in special effects.
Yeah.
Because obviously you had Terminator 2, then Jurassic Park. I'd throw like Toy Story in there as well as like a big advancement, and then The Matrix. And they feel like 4 really big advancements in like digital effects, which obviously ended up for a while being the only way that people did effects, which is why I think like a lot of the films from the 2000s to like 2010 have aged really bad because they were just doing as many effects as they possibly could.
Well, what's interesting about the ones you said there, obviously Toy Story is completely animated. Yeah. Jurassic Park, obviously the dinosaurs are very much like they're animated.
Yeah.
Terminator 2 is very much one character, whereas I feel like here the visual effects are more subtle. Like we said, it's much more of a blend, rather than those, they're like, oh yeah, we're using the special effects to do this one particular thing. Yeah. Obviously the Sentinels are obviously like the dinosaurs, but yeah, I think it's a more subtle use, more integrated use of the special effects. And on that note, we're gonna call it. So first of all, Danny, thank you for joining me and putting yourself through this arduous process. And thank you to you, our viewers and our listeners, for joining my film club. For any of you that haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast feeds wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the full episodes, as well as bonus contents and smaller clips and all that sort of thing. And we will be seeing you the last Thursday of every month in perpetuity for new episodes. So thank you for joining us, and enjoy your movies.